Right.
Oh, that's a good one.
He's got all the knowledge. He's got all the ins and outs.
I'll give you a call tomorrow too on.
Over this
Nice.
Sometime soon I'll get another free one. So if somebody looking on board somebody's crap, I'm just dumb enough to take it.
That's our friend Nick.
Say, oh,
$100, right?
Don't
Yes.
spend 2 years.
Hey, Doc, how are you doing, buddy?
Take it out there. How about you?
All right. Oh, here she is.
Dr. Neal, eventually, that not livable.
So Jill, tell us when you're ready.
Yes, give me 1 second, Dr. Lee, just set my thought down here.
So it's Heidi.
Thousands are waiting on YouTube.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of
Full of a lot of comments.
Sometimes somebody's waiting for who will watch, just to criticize. So we'll call the meeting of the planning board to order here, December 22nd, 6 p.m. And the call to order, I think, is necessary.
Thomas Callahan.
Present.
Rupert Friday.
Here.
Dr. O'Neill.
Here.
Stephen D. Simone.
Here.
James Grundy.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chairman, you have 5 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. I think we have only one item of business tonight, and that's to construct or get to the point of recommendation to the town council. A focus is the zoning ordinance amendment reversion to dimensional regulations prior to December the 18th, 2023, specifically sections 2, 4, 6, 7, 12, and 17. Ms. Joe?
Okay, thank you. So as everyone was here last week, we discussed, I had a PowerPoint, we talked about, we went through a page turn of the ordinance, the proposal that the town council sent to you for review and recommendation. And at that time, I indicated to you that since these changes had already been reviewed twice by the town, that what I did was I included your previous findings in that. And the draft that you have before you tonight includes those previous findings. A couple of things that the council asked this board to do. They asked you to look at FAR, consider FAR, FAR, and also if there was any, I think the phrase used was middle ground, if there was any considerations that could be made if you, if you couldn't recommend approval outright. And then you did, actually this board did on Tuesday. A couple of folks pretty clearly and explicitly gave some direct considerations by part that was provided down from the council to the planning board. And then a couple of, actually 3 I think, sort of general considerations that the town council might want to consider when they're looking at doing either this ordinance change or any ordinance change in the future. I took that information over the weekend and I tried to give you a draft. As you can see, it's all ready to go as if it's going to the town council already. Should say draft on every page. And I tried to pull in all the information that you all said, and I think Mr. Grundy and I had a separate offline conversation about something as well. Try to include all of that, and now here you are. So it's really about you making sure that I've got all of the information here. Add the information in if there's additional findings if you want to make, if you want to revise those findings, and that's where we are.
So the plan is to go through the draft as it sits in front of us and then to vote on it? What's the plan?
You can certainly do that. I think we probably have some folks, it looks like Mr. Friday wants to say something. And you do have some folks in the audience. It might be worthy to have a conversation with the folks in the audience prior to, that way you don't, it might change some of the information in there. It might
So
change
you
your
suggest
opinion.
We suggest we get that input before we start
I do
into the-
suggest you talk to the public first, yes.
into the draft. Okay, sounds reasonable.
We don't have the podium set up.
That doesn't preclude you, by the way, Dr. O'Neill, from talking to them at any other point.
It doesn't, I'm sorry, Ms.
It doesn't preclude you if someone wanted to they wanted to talk about something specific later on. It's your prerogative as the board to allow.
Okay. So we'll go to the public at this point?
We needed a podium in the.
Yeah, swing it up, yeah, I got it.
And, yeah, whoever is going to speak would remember to speak from there, not from the back of the room, because the thousands at home who are watching, there are only two cameras. One is pointed there and one is pointed here.
So I don't know if
Anybody like to
anybody
speak?
wants to speak now. Maybe they
No?
don't.
Maybe later?
If you would like to, yeah.
If you would identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name's Linda Bailey. I am president of the Breakwater Village Condo Association. So, there seems to be some confusion as to what we are really asking for the planning board. And let me start from the beginning. So in the beginning of November, I was contacted by James Durkin to send an email to each council member requesting that Breakwater Village would like to be included in the 15% reduction. So I was under the impression that because we're a special zoning district, that we maybe had to get approval separate and apart from the rest of the town. So I sent an email to each council member requesting that we be included in this 15% reduction. And then I gave an explanation why, is because as it stands now, that 15% reduction will bring us back to our original setbacks. So somehow there was some confusion with that with the town, and they think that we want to go back to our original setbacks. And unbeknownst to us, we didn't realize that if we go back to those original setbacks, we also have an additional 15% that can be taken off of that. So we're looking at a 30% reduction for us, and we don't want to do that. So what we would like to do is we would like to keep where we are, stay what we have right now, and then just be allowed to have that 15% reduction where our unit owners can come to the town and request that. I do have the original email that I sent to the town, if you would like to see that. Okay. Can I bring that up to you? Okay. Sure.
You understand?
I think I'm in court.
I'll
That's
have
easier.
to get the stickers.
I'm sorry, Dr. O'Neill?
Yeah, so is that now on the draft of the town council, is that part of our?
No, I just spoke with Ms. Bailey about a minute before I walked through the
Oh,
door.
okay, good, good.
So,
Okay.
but you will see when you get through there that what I took away, and
Yeah.
that's why you're gonna double check it. What I took away from the meeting last Tuesday was that you had talked about it and you had a representative here.
Yeah.
It seemed like they weren't really sure, so
Yeah.
I believe I put in there was a discussion and that your advisement was that the council get clarification. Sounds like you might have just gotten clarification
Yeah.
regarding not the, and I don't want to misstate here, that the Breakwater Village Condominium Association does not want to revert back to 2023. You would like to keep the dimensional standards as they are today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just our second request was to, as far as sheds,
Yeah.
50 square feet and under. So we would like to mirror the verbiage that the town uses. Right now, our current verbiage is that we have a 1/3 reduction. And we'd like to mirror the town and just say a 1/3 setback. So right now, we have a 6-foot setback. So if we do the 1/3 reduction, they only have to go back 4 feet. If we mirror the town, they only have to go in 2 feet. it makes a big difference on a lot of the smaller lots. It would benefit majority of the unit owners. So, you know, we like to request a change in that zoning to mirror the town's verbiage.
No, so, and we understood that, and I guess that's a question for Nick. Is that something, I guess, we can recommend that with our
Yeah, so
recommendations?
we're in a stage of study and recommendation. So if you have commentary that you like to go to the council, you absolutely can include that.
Okay.
Well, one of the things, James Durkin contacted me again and requested that our attorney, Ray Harrison, send an email.
We saw that.
Oh, you saw that?
We
Okay.
saw that. We
So
got
you're
that last week. We got that last week.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. All right. I'm sorry, I apologize for any inconvenience.
No, you're fine.
No, it's great to have a clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Easier. Okay. We don't need any movement or anything on that now.
No, I think if you're gonna do a page turn on the report, you could address it then.
Okay.
However you want to do it. I believe it, so if you wanted to look at it, it's on page 6 of the draft.
Well, since it's clear and just presented a moment ago,
Mhm.
why not, if there is a discussion it now, and if we're all in agreement and support, make sure that when we get to that, rather than going backwards, you know?
Okay. So on page 6, where it talks about part 3 and 4, section 4.8.1.5D, Breakwater Village Special Planning District. Then it talks about how the board discussed, a member was here, and the board discussed making the edit requested, which was the edit from the attorney, is it Harrison?
Ray Harrison.
Yep, Mr. Harrison. And that's about maybe a little more than half down the page. And then the board would consider revising accessory structures back to the height prior to. I believe that was consistent with what was also recommended for accessory structures everywhere else in town.
Right.
And then at the very last sentence I put in there, I thought this reflected what you were trying to say, is that the board suggests the council get a clear understanding of the desire of the neighborhood. Sounds like you might have just done that.
Yeah, it seems like that last
Mhm.
paragraph, that it's unclear if Breakwater Village is aware.
Right, so
We
that
can
could be
strike that,
changed, yeah.
Actually, it should be, I think Jill stated in the affirmative, that the president of Breakwater Village appeared and asked that the setback, the dimensional setbacks as established in, for the Breakwater Village remain the same, but for the shed setback to mirror the town's, the setback and the rest, how it's handled, the third setback, how it's handled on the rest of town.
Sure, and do you want to address, does the board want to address the other, for the other item that you're addressing, which is accessory structures?
So you're asking, the language is in there, it's underlined on page 6, the board would also consider revising the accessory
Yeah.
structure maximum height back to prior standards?
Yeah, so I think on the middle of page 6, the board would also consider revising accessory structure maximum.
Right?
Yep, do you, if I didn't hear that from the folks at Breakwater Village, you want to strike that?
Do you have, while you're here, do you have,
I don't know anything about that. I don't, what were they proposing? What was proposed? We don't want any changes. We want to stay right how we are right now.
but for the, using the third?
You mean the shed?
Yes, but for the shed,
Okay.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So, yes, let me just get there real quick. So in part 3, which is your dimensional regulation table for Breakwater Village, the recommendation was for all of those to go back, which we just heard from the president, that the association does not want that to happen. But one of them was the accessory structure, which was originally at 10 feet, so you're aware, height, and then was reverted to 9, and the proposal from the town council would go back to 10. Accessory structure height.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean,
His
part of the
meeting.
association, but I think we wanted to just keep everything,
Great.
because almost everything in Breakwater requires a special use permit. And when they go get a special use permit, they can ask for the various relief that they need to get back to the old regulation.
Okay. So then for Mr. Pimentel, if I may, everything on that dimensional table would stay as it is now, not revert back. And the board is considering, and I think you might have already at least somewhat acknowledged that the shed language would be changed per Mr. Harrington's letter. Harrison? Harrison.
Our son. I think that captures it, Jill.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to speak at this point? Otherwise, we will forge ahead here.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to let everybody speak, but I have a procedural question.
The procedural. Go ahead.
The last meeting, we talked about a 2023 memo that was sent from the planning chair to the town council president that talks about how these proposals were based upon a desire to not have the town get the impact of the 15% reduction or relief that was granted. And my concern was how it fits within the hierarchy of state law. And I've spent the last week trying to find something. What I found was in the Rhode Island Constitution, Article 13, the home rule for cities and towns, Section 4, and I'd just like the solicitor to tell me, it reads about the powers of the General Assembly over cities and towns. The General Assembly shall have the power to act in relation to the property, affairs, and government of any city or town by general laws which shall apply alike to all cities and towns, but which shall not affect the form of government of any city or town. The General Assembly shall have the power to act in relation to property, affairs, and government of a particular city or town, provided that such legislative action shall become effective only upon approval of the majority of the qualified electors of the city or town, voting at the general or special election, except in the case of acts involving the imposition of tax or the expenditure of money. So I understand why they did it, and I think that the law as it was written is dangerous and broad. One size doesn't fit all. But when the town passes a piece of legislation to offset something that the General Assembly passed, do we have the legal authority to even do that? Because it seems like what we did based upon that memo is contrary to Article 13, Section 4. I mean, I think we can go back, but you're going to have to go back and individually address every single one of these ordinances individually, create findings for them individually. I just don't know that the act that was taken in 2023 was done properly. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just trying to find out if we have any legal option other than to recommend that they go back to be in compliance with the state constitution and then address these individually going forward. And if you got to take a minute to think, there's a lot to throw at you.
Interesting. On the one hand, the state, the sovereign, has passed legislation through the General Assembly. On the other hand, an opponent of your position might say the state at a different time passed the Zoning Enabling Act that gave cities and towns the ability to craft zoning ordinances. So I won't go as far as saying it's the act then in 2023 is illegal, nor would I say an act in a month from now by the town council changing it back is illegal. I do see your point because you're pointing out a potential for conflict. The state has said one thing, a town preemptively made another move. Whether or not that's in direct conflict, I think there was argument of that. There was suggestion that Narragansett shouldn't have done that by some, but I can't in the moment say it was illegal, especially, and I keep coming back to zoning enabling, where the sovereign, the state specifically authorized cities and towns to pass zoning ordinances. That would be the authority that I would point to if I were defending a town in that argument.
Does it go to the last legislation passed? Does each legislation supersede the previous legislation?
Give me an example, what do you mean?
If we have a given statute, actually, can statute be in conflict with the Constitution?
Yes, happens all the time. It should not happen
It
all
should
the
not
time.
happen.
But there is, put differently, there is case law addressing that statute would be null and void, it would be illegal.
Dilemma.
I just, before we go through everything item by item, I want to make sure that what we do is proper, we're doing it in the proper format. And that's what my concern is that when I read this as a layperson, it seems like the only option we have in front of us is to revert, but then you have the ability, like Rupert did, he started going through ordinance by ordinance and enumerating specific numbers and reasoning and findings behind them, and that there's good reason. I don't think that the 15% fits Narragansett. I think it's a bad fit here, but I don't know how you get over the hurdle of the hierarchy of authority.
Sure, that's what you're not missing a point. It hasn't been challenged. You don't have an answer from the courts yet, and I do want to correct the statement I just made when I said it happens all the time. Much of our case law dealing with legislatures passing law that conflicts with, say, federal constitution or state constitution. When I say it happens all the time, there's a lot of case law dealing with that and directing us to the fact that the state constitution must trump that, or the federal constitution must trump state law that's contrary to that. So it doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but when it does happen, there is case law to support how we proceed. On this particular issue, I can't point to you a case where that has come up in the state of Rhode Island. I think that's what your point is, Jill.
I just don't know that I want to be the test case when someone comes in and feels that they would be entitled to the 15% relief from the 2023 numbers. Do we have a winnable position if we were taken to court when somebody says that the way that the legislature, or the way that the ordinance was changed was improper because it was in conflict with the state constitution?
Right, I see the point. I think would be, at least on this issue, a question of first impression. So what we do right now is you proceed, you do so on a good faith basis, and that's the best guidance I can give you. I don't think your recommendation tonight, that's where we're at review and recommendation of the town council. You're well within your parameter to advise the council as an advisory board as to your feelings, your thoughts after study on this ordinance that's been put in front of you. So you're ready, willing, and able to proceed tonight. That's how I recommend you proceed.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm way away from a lawyer. And I like black and white, or whatever term you want to use, but that's not the way this is. As you know, you're a business guy, you know. But I hear what you're saying. Anybody else have a comment on that? We'll move ahead.
I mean, I'll just say this one, after hearing that read to us, I know, right? I'll keep it brief. After hearing what was said there and reading the rationale behind the 2023 town council's choice, it seems pretty obvious that their choice was to do it specifically in opposition to the state law, which it seems like the Constitution says that's not how you're supposed to do it. So I agree with Mr. Grundy that
What's that?
that ship has sailed. I agree with you guys that the ship has sailed. But I also agree it seems evident that if someone were to challenge us on what was done, I think they've got a decent case, being not a lawyer. It seems to me that that says right in it,
But coming from a
don't
family,
do that.
For having the genetics for it.
Yeah. Yes, there, wild disappointment. But it seems to me that one way to do it, like Mr. Grundy says, is to revert it all back to 15% and say, we're doing this so that we can take it up on a case-by-case basis. But if that's not the consensus of the council, let's keep it rolling. But I happen to think that's probably a good point and shields us from expensive litigation.
Yeah,
Raise that, Thomas.
I guess, I understand the argument, I do. I would say that, I guess I give some credence to the fact that we're now 2 years deep, haven't been sued. No one's taken that course, no one's taken that. And I suggest, and there's not for lack of attorneys out there that have been representing clients in front of this board who have essentially had decisions on the basis of that and in front of the zoning board. So you know, as you know, Steve, anybody can sue anybody for anything at any point in time.
Of course, I just want us to
I
win.
get the constitutional argument, I get it. We're not looking to secede from the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
But, like I said, you're 2 years deep into this right now, and ample decisions having been made along the way. I feel comfortable with moving forward tonight.
Okay. Without clear reason to do otherwise, we'll move on, right?
So what are we doing? What are we doing? Page turn, or what are we doing?
Right, so thank you, Mr. Callahan. I would, unless someone wants to move in a different direction, I would suggest a page turn. So if most of the information, a little bit more explanatory in the beginning, which is the side yard setback and the dimensions. But it's the considerations I thought that were, that I spent the most time on, because those were specifically asked for by the town council. This body has been advised on multiple occasions that at the end of the review, that there's a vote only for what's been put on the table, only for what was proposed down. So I believe we talked about it last week with Mr. Callahan. You can't redline a red line. But I think you provided enough information, and Mr. Grundy, to your point, under point by point with these changes to try to address them. Ms. Friday, you mentioned that you verbalized all of that last week, and so did you, Mr. Callahan. So I think those are those considerations are, if you can't recommend approval, that they asked for that information. I thought that was probably from my perspective, I focused on that. Ultimately, you're going to have to make findings on it, and I left the findings in from before. And if additional findings or new findings, however the board wants to handle that. But I thought it might be wise to go through those considerations, and just because on Tuesday it was all verbal.
Yep.
But now you can actually read it, and now you can actually understand it. And if you have additional information as we go, I'll write it down. I'll add it in. I don't have a problem with that.
Chairman, perhaps as we go through the recommendations on Tuesday, we talked about them all. But I know when we did this back in March and April, we voted on the individual pieces of it, so we knew where there was consensus and where there was majority or disagreement on things. It might be useful because it seemed like in some areas we have consensus and some we don't.
Some areas we didn't.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So, set down a couple of them, which is fine. So this is the board.
But on page 2, there's one place, it's second paragraph on page 2, the last sentence. This was noted in our review, that there's additional text has been added to the zoning ordinance, and we didn't know what it meant, and we had our solicitor here last week, as well as Jack McGreen, another attorney, who also read it and didn't understand what it meant. And I don't know if Nick,
If
you have,
if you don't know what it means and aren't comfortable making a recommendation on it, I would point it out in your recommendation.
okay, which is what,
It's the best way of handling it.
which is the way it reads now, I believe.
It would be interesting though, Nick, just from your vantage point, looking at the language and where it's placed, to understand whether or not that language as it's written is limited to section 4.5E or is applicable outside of section 4.5.
I know I won't be able to give you an answer in the moment. I'd have to study
I think-
as you know, there's a lot of twists and turns in ours, especially our zoning ordinance.
Right.
It is what it is. And the interplay that I've seen between sections is significant in Narragansett. So to sit here in the moment, look at a draft and say, oh, that this doesn't apply elsewhere, I'd be lying to you.
No,
I'm not gonna mislead you.
And I guess, I get that, I'll take it. What's a little disappointing is this question was raised specifically with Bob last week. Say, hey Bob, when you come back next week, we've got a set of questions we hope we can get answers to. Obviously, you're not prepared to give that answer tonight. We're in a position where we've got to move forward, and it would be helpful to have that information when we're able to consider it. Not on you, I'm just saying,
Sure.
it's an issue. Okay, go ahead.
So what page are we on? And let's roll on here.
You're on 2.
Line 2,
No, you're on page 2.
page 2. Good.
This is the, so this, I think, is worth the discussion too, the side yard setback. And this is really a separate piece from the part 1, part 2, part 3 is eliminating the text that says, in no case shall a side yard setback be less than 5 feet for a 1-story building or 2-story building, or 8 feet for a 3-story building without first receiving a variance from the zoning board of review. And this was another question I had. There's been discussion that the town can't amend the zoning, the fire code without it going to the state and getting approved. And I guess the way I see this is it's in the zoning ordinance and not in the fire code. So I think that we have, for health, safety, and welfare, pretty broad authority there. And I guess, I mean, my sense is, after the Station nightclub fire, I can't imagine the state putting a straitjacket on the town saying, no, you can't do this. And we had testimony from a couple fire experts in March and April saying this is important for fire safety, so I think it's important to keep in there.
That recent letter also, he may have been,
Right.
the fellows who spoke, his name, this guy Lennon or?
Tom Warren, yeah,
Tom Warren.
he's here tonight, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Rupert, just to clarify and be able to move on.
Yeah.
Is there any, I guess, Nick, is there any reason, legal reason, why the town cannot have something in the zoning ordinance prescribing what the set, what distance between, the minimum distances between 2 buildings?
No.
Do
I would
we-
expect, I would
We have
expect
we have the authority to do that.
the legislative body,
Right.
town
Yeah,
council.
the town does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did what Jim did on this. I went and looked at the fire code. And there's language in there, whenever the provisions of any other statute or local regulation are more stringent or impose a higher standard than the state fire safety code, that statute or local regulation will govern unless it's not consistent with the state fire code or contrary to recognized standards or good engineering practices. So I think, and then it has, it actually has the purposes of the state fire code. And one of the purposes is to permit cities and towns to enact ordinances in orders related to fire safety, provided those orders and ordinances impose requirements equal to or additional to or more stringent than the contained in the code. It seems to me that it's pretty clear authorization, and then we're not doing it in the fire code, we're doing it in zoning enabling, which I think,
So as a way to kind of help move us through this.
Sorry, yep.
No, I'm just trying, this is a specific question that the council asked us to look at.
Yes.
In the last page of their transmittal, modified dimensional regulations for the one that says the side yard setback.
Yep, they struck it out, yeah.
So I guess the question is, can we get a sense of where we are as members on that issue? Don't have to lock it down, but get a sense for where we are on that issue now with respect to fire safety, and then move on to the next question.
That's good, and this is the one in March and April, we were unanimous on this one, I think. Steve was on board with this too.
I do care about fire safety. I think an elegant compromise would be what we already do when people ask for a zoning variance from the setback, is put in the ordinance 5 feet or 8 feet, provided that, you know, there's no egress window on that side of the building. So if there's no egress window, they could be closer than the 5 or 8, but if there is an egress window, then they have to maintain the 5 or 8. Because that standard set from the fire code for ladder access to the egress window. So if you only need to walk past it, you need 4 feet to get to the back of the house where the egress window is. Lots of towns do this kind of stuff. You know, if there's setbacks between buildings, if there's a window, they're more stringent because of just that. So I thought that'd be an elegant change to that would be, if you want to keep it at 5 or 8, I think 5's okay, but if you want to keep it at 5 or 8, keep it at 5 or 8, provided there's no egress window on that side of the house. Because the whole idea was to give people enough relief so that they don't have to come to 2 more meetings and pay, especially if all we're going to say to them is, hey, you got an egress window over there, you probably shouldn't have it for fire safety. You just put it right in the code, and then they don't have to come to 2 meetings and have us lecture, because it's right in there. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that's what I'd like to see happen with that.
So you would change the standard to what, if there's an egress window?
I would keep the 5 or 8 if there's an egress window. And I would revert back to whatever it was previous, you know, if there's not, so you can get closer.
Yeah, so there's no minimum other than that.
The minimum is set by zoning ordinance already. This is an additional minimum you guys set in case the previous plan.
So the reason this got written was when the substandard lot legislation passed.
Yep.
It ended up you could have setbacks that were 3 feet or less.
Yes, I read it. That was why it was set.
So, I mean,
So if you want to set it at 4 feet.
Fire safety is one, but I mean, like, to me, being able to maintain a house on the outside without trespassing on your neighbor's property, I think is another reason to have a minimum setback.
Sure. So if you want to set it at 4 feet, I think 4 feet's enough. The fire chief said you need 4 feet for walk by with a ladder. There's your 4 feet. If you want to set a ladder up against the house, just because you're going up 30 feet, if you're not a firefighter, if you're a worker, there are ways to do that safely without going 10 feet out off the house.
Yeah,
Plenty of ways.
10 feet out, but.
Yeah, plenty of ways. You can go straight up the side. You just got to secure it to the building.
There's a set of phone checks.
Yeah, there's that too. So I think 4 feet is a fine minimum. And if you want to keep the 5 and 8, you say, you know, 5 and 8 if you're going to have an egress window on that side of the house. And then you don't have to worry about the fire.
Otherwise, it's no less than 4.
Sure. Well, it's a compromise, right?
Well, it may.
I'm trying.
No, I understand that. The question is, from a fire safety point of view, does that 1 foot, is it meaningful, is it a difference that makes a difference? I don't know. You want to take public comment on this? If there's anyone here who wants to comment?
Yeah, you've heard me preach before. I mean, I spent my life waiting for the next disaster, because that's what we train for. And when it happens, well, hell breaks loose, and then you say, why didn't we, or didn't they, or why? So this whole idea of making it, for whatever reason, narrow when we have an opportunity, we don't always have an opportunity, obviously, but when we have an opportunity to make it from a safety standpoint pretty obvious, because that's what's recommended. And the whole idea of window or no window, there's a different owner, they put a window in, they take a window out. I mean, I think if we are looking at a piece of property and there's a structure going to be put up near the property line, I think we should make it as safe as possible, because we have that opportunity at that time. I hear what you're saying, and you work in feet in terms of trying to fit buildings in, but my feeling is if 5 and 8 is what's recommended from a safety standpoint, then we should endorse that. I mean, I can't, I know what you're saying, but you know, it's like the people who say, hey, look, my neighbor, they don't have a fence, it's all lawn right up to the side of my, what difference does it make if it's 2 feet or, that's this year. To think that way, I can't think that way. Because of my background. 5 and 8 is what's recommended. 5 and 8 should be what's written. That's my feeling. So. But what you said though is true. You can come in here and ask for fellow in the back wall. You can ask for you know, put up an argument, or not an argument, but put up a proposition that obviously makes some sense in that one particular property, but the majority of properties, especially if you're talking about it when the construction is going to begin, why not make it as quote, safe as possible without imposing? 5 feet is an imposition. Okay. It's my strong feeling. Anybody else?
I just want to know, are we thinking about this from a fire safety issue, or are we thinking of this from an aesthetic issue, or a combination of both? Because there's all kinds of non-combustible construction that could be a condition, that could be a reason for relief.
Mm-hmm.
There's flame retardant paint, there's flame retardant shingles, there's fireproof plywood now. So,
right.
But you put that on the house you're building, and it's not going to be on the house next door.
yes, the question is, the one you're building, the one next door isn't the one that we are talking about granting the relief to. It would be the one that you're actually building. So if the one next door were burning, and you had flame retardant paint, flame retardant siding, flame retardant plywood, if you were going to build in that area, if the concern is fire safety, there's other ways around it. So would there still be a mechanism for relief if other means were employed to create that same safety level?
Yeah, I think there's more reasons than just fire safety. I think that you want to maintain the house without trespassing our neighbor's property.
Well, I think you raise a point though in terms of aesthetics, and when you guys, because I won't be here, start with the 2.5 year comprehensive plan and listen to people in terms of what they want here. At least we did, and they want to see green, they want to see some distance, they don't want to see from New Jersey, the Jersey way of putting a house every foot, you know, with no distance in between. 20, 30, whatever years later, 40 years later, everybody looks around and says, how the hell did this happen? So yeah, I think there is a little bit of aesthetics, you're right. There's nothing wrong with a little green. We all know the water has to go somewhere, and there's also breathing and all that stuff. So my feeling is, yeah, there's that little piece of aesthetics, and I realize that. So my feeling is very strong. But come in if you have a reason. We had somebody recently who pointed that out. There was very little risk on the side. There were reasons to do it that way, and it was instead of whatever was going to be 5, they did it with 3 or something like that, 3 feet. And well, I think that was the agreement, but there was no fire risk in that 3 feet area. So they can always ask for a variance. So that's where I'm coming from, 5 and 8. So, we moving along here, or we're
Do you have other folks on your board who want to talk, Dr. O'Neill?
Did you want to ask if anyone here from the public wanted to speak on this?
On this issue, yeah, sure.
I'll speak briefly.
Yep.
I sent you all a letter recently about this particular issue. I'm Tom Warren, I live at 26 Jakes Way in Narragansett. I spent 35 years in the Providence Fire Department, and 5 years in other departments before that as a volunteer. A lot of experience in fire spread, flame spread. I worked in probably the busiest neighborhoods in the state, the south end, west end of Providence, a lot of fires, a lot of extension of fires. Raising ground ladders, I was in ladder companies for quite a few years. The higher you're going to raise a ground ladder, the further up you need to put it. And what you do today, what people do today, is not what you're going to see in 3 to 5 years. Other people come in, sell, move, different ideas. There's a wall, there's no wall, there's a clothesline, there's something else. I think the further apart the buildings are, the better it is. And the other thing I don't seem to see anything being addressed about is a subdivision. So you have a new building here, and they want to put it closer to the edge, and another new building here, and they want to put it closer to the edge. And I have 2 buildings that are really close together, and they could be, most of the buildings are vinyl siding. I mean, there are other avenues, other construction materials that you can use. They degrade over time, they all do. But right now, none of the buildings in this town have that. They're vinyl siding, they're wood shake shingles, clapboard, they're old, they're new. There's a whole variety of exposures out there. And when a building gets going, and in this town, this time of year, you can get a fire, get a good head start on it. The radiant heat that's going to come off that building is going to go through the window of the building next door and ignite the window framing and the curtains and everything in it. And you're going to have two buildings going when you get there. We have a lot of wind here, which makes it even worse. Transient people. We have a lot of people that are too many in one building. 3-bedroom houses with 15 people sleeping in them. These are real dangers. I want to compliment the Narragansett Fire Department. I think we have one of the best fire departments. They do a very, very good job. Excellent EMS service. But on the suppression side, there's really not enough of them. When you get a good fire going, and you get a fire going on the 3rd floor, and you're trying to get a handline position, you need more than the people that we have here on duty. So it's going to get away from you. It's going to extend. The fire's going to extend every time. And I think that it's important that we consider these kind of things. I don't think somebody wants to have a foot. You know, what's a foot? A foot's a lot. When you're trying to lay the ground ladder at night against the side of a building with 3 people. You're trying to get a 24 or 35-foot ground ladder up. A foot is big. You can't put it up against a building and then try to get yourself on a ladder. Much more trying to get somebody down a ladder. It's very, very difficult. The ladder's not stable. I know you can secure them in your building. I know you can do that, but we can't do that on a fire ground. We can do it once it's in place. We can get up and we can dog it. But that's the last thing we can do. That's the last. Somebody's hanging out a window. You can't be fooling around with that stuff. So I think this is very serious. I think this is a consequential decision. I think you should be erring on the side of safety, not on aesthetics, not on how many rooms you can sneak in or how big the rooms can be. You should be erring on the side of safety. You owe it to the people who live here now. You owe it to the people who are going to live here. It's real. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Patrick
Still
Doherty.
wearing those sneakers.
Thank you, yeah, the Bulletsburg. Patrick Doherty, 9 Flint Drive. I'm not being paid to be here tonight. I'm here just as a resident and a taxpayer of the town of Narragansett. Just one thing that I'd like you to keep in mind going forward as a general, guideline for all of these potential recommendations is zoning is supposed to look to make things more conforming in a town. And what I think that the last council did by enacting the 15% modification or modification to all the dimensions in the entire zoning ordinance was to do the opposite of what zoning is supposed to do. And I termed it a knee-jerk overreaction in what they did, and I still hold that true to the same degree. What this town has done has hurt many of the property owners in the town of Narragansett through all of these things. And I wholly agree with concerns about fire safety and whatnot. But if you really wanted to do something to promote safety and to promote uniformity and to promote conformity in the zoning regulations, is to do more of an analysis of our neighborhoods in the town. We have tons of highly densely populated subdivisions in the town here that have substandard lots for the zoning. You know, we have R10 zoning. There's a lot of 5,000 square foot lots in the R10 zoning. There are 8,000 square foot lots. We should be matching our zoning and our regulation to meet the character of those neighborhoods instead of punishing people who came into ownership of lots that are non-conforming in those neighborhoods to begin with. The legislation that was passed was initially passed to promote more ease of development for non-conforming substandard lots of record. But what occurred with this wholesale change of all of our dimensional regulations was to just relegate an enormous number of properties as non-conforming now. And that's wrong. It's wrong to do that. People have been penalized. People who had the ability to do things with their property now have to go to the expense of hiring a lawyer, hiring a surveyor. You know, it's not cheap. You know, a survey is going to cost you a couple of $1,000 even on a small lot. And to come before the board, come before this board for a report and recommendation, and then go to zoning. That's wrong. It's wrong to put people in that type of a position just because there was a toxic culture of not letting the state tell us what to do in our town. And there's also a misconception on the part of many people in our town, in our community, about the concept of a home rule charter. Home rule charter, of course, allows you to promulgate regulations and different police power ordinances as well to promote the health, safety, and welfare of your community members. But the zoning ordinance has to comply with the State Zoning Enabling Act. The subdivision regulations have to comply with the enabling legislation for subdivision regulations. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that. But to take what the last town council did and render hundreds upon hundreds of properties as now non-conforming is just wrong. It goes against the principles of orderly zoning, and that's conformity. So we should, instead of wasting our time fighting and sniping about these dimensional regulations, we should really put our, the nose to the grindstone and analyze these neighborhoods. Get the Department of Community Development and Planning to go back and do an analysis, or hire someone, get some grant money, hire someone to go back and look at our neighborhoods and develop an ordinance and zoning classifications for those properties that's more in keeping with what's on the ground and present. And then you could make a uniform code of zoning ordinances and dimensional regulations to match what's built out and on the ground, instead of punishing people who now have to deal with hiring me or someone else, hiring a surveyor, engineers to go through all of that. It's been a toxic culture. It's wrong. What the last town council did, I've been doing zoning for 30 years, I mean, and I think I have just as much to say about it as any other lawyer that practices in that realm. But this is the only town in the state of Rhode Island that I'm aware of that took that action to, oh, well then what's the other town? I'm unaware of it.
Tiverton?
Tiverton did the same thing with the 15%?
Tiverton downzoned a lot of the town.
Okay, well, there you go. I've been special counsel for Tiverton too, and that's quite a community in and of itself.
And I know there's other towns too. I've been involved in discussions with planners around the state.
Well, I have too. I talked to my professionals as well, and they was unaware of anything. If now you say Tiverton, I have no reason not to believe you, Mr. Friday, 100%. But what we're doing here is not the right approach. It's punishing people. It's punishing people who, one of the things, and I'm sure, the YouTube video is going to promulgate all kinds of Facebook comments. I've made a career out of...
Don't worry about it, Pat.
No, I don't. I really don't.
I'm sure
I don't
you'll be
worry
able to
about
sleep
it
tonight.
at all. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of my career in zoning, I've done opposition work. I mean, I just finished up opposing Salve Regina's University dormitories after 8 years. I'm opposing a solar project in a residential neighborhood in Western Cranston right now. I'm in my 8th year on that one. I've fought construction of power plants. I've fought construction of subdivisions. I've done all kinds of things. The overwhelming majority of what I have done in my career as a lawyer focusing in zoning has been opposition work. I do represent developers now, and I have, throughout my career. But the approach this town has taken is wrong. It's just so wrong to make so many properties non-conforming. I have people that have had to move out of town, young families, the kind that we're trying to keep in this town, to add to the school system. The homes that they could afford and that they bought and purchased and lived in, they outgrew. They can't do it. They couldn't add on a simple little addition. They couldn't do anything to their own property, whereas they would be able to do it ordinarily. But now we've made it that much harder for people to do something like that. And they're young families. They're not just people that are investors. And the other thing too, the world is changing. It really is. We're not making any more land, all right? And we live in one of the most beautiful towns in the United States, in my opinion. And obviously a lot of other people feel the same way because they come from all over the world to spend time in Narragansett. But for the residents that are here and the property owners that are here, we shouldn't be making it harder for them to do simple things. And what that town council did the last run around, and I regularly spoke with people on that council. I told them I was straight out with the same opinion that I have right now. It's wrong to render a vast number of properties non-conforming. And although the intention may be good, and I think everyone here has good intentions, I think you're looking out to be good stewards of the town. But the whole thing here is we shouldn't be penalizing people. We shouldn't be rendering things non-conforming. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be making our zoning ordinances match the character of the community and the site in which the lots are situated. That's where our focus should be, instead of being more restrictive on this stuff. We should go back to where we were, allow the intent of the law to go forward with the 15%, and move on. But go forward, analyze what we have, make new classifications. Instead of just R10, R20, R80, we should make R8, we should make R5, whatever matches those lots that are existing in that neighborhood, to allow for orderly development that still maintain the safeguards in place for fire safety and so on and so forth, but not make it so onerous. We've got to change this toxic culture. You're a quasi-judicial body. You're rendering your decision and opinion based on the application of the regulations that come before you and the zoning that comes before you. And you need to have an open mind about that, instead of this culture that's been developed over the last chairmanship and the one before that, and the advocacy from the former director of the Department of Community Development and Planning. I've been blindsided coming into hearings before, not due to anyone up here, but I've been blindsided with issues coming up that they knew about full well. I've had to anticipate issues when I've come before the board of, okay, what could they possibly do with it? What could they spring on me and my client at the time? That's wrong. Evidence should be put before you. You apply the regulations as they're drafted, and you make a decision. But in viewing these regs, you should think about it. Do we want to add more conformity to our town, and do we want to match the character of our neighborhoods, or do we want to deal with this fictitious place of, no matter what, 15%, let's just get it back so they can't get more than what they already have? That's not what subdivision waivers are for. That's not what zoning ordinance variances are for. They allow for that under certain sets of circumstances. So I'd just like you to keep that in mind when you're weighing your report and recommendation. It's important to the people of the community and to the families that want to stay here and to the older people that want to age in place. And that's all I ask that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, does somebody else back in there, and they want to speak up?
No, he's shaking his head.
No?
He's shaking his head.
Okay.
He's shaking his head.
Moving right along.
So do we want to resolve the issue of fire, or just keep moving?
I sound like I'm a one-man band over here, so I just keep it moving, and unless It just, it's,
Let's
come
keep
on, let's
moving.
keep it moving.
Okay,
Yeah, let's get through here.
okay. So we're on to
15%.
15% lots?
Yeah.
Mr. Callahan, you're at the top of page 6, part 2.
You mean of the council's submission, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no,
Referral?
we could, no, I meant of the report, but if we're on council submission.
No.
Yeah,
I thought we were on page 3 as well.
Are we on page 3? Okay, thank you.
So where are we here? Page 3?
Page 3.
All right.
And this is
Dimensional
really-
modification? Okay.
Got it.
And this includes the Breakwater Village issue as well?
So page 3 is the background information for the request. So it talks about it. It talks about what the background was, what happened. It gives you a little context and detail of, to Mr. Doherty's point, actually how many lots there are, how many parcels there currently are, less than 10,000 square feet, and an example that I provided last week of what an R20 zone, pardon me, what an 8,000 square foot lot would look like in an R80 and an R10 zone, where they would both be receiving those dimensional modifications as well as the 15% modification. The considerations that address that start on page, well, it starts on page 6, which is part 2, that's for high water table. But that in particular, dimensional regulations
I'm
is
sorry,
page.
Jill.
I'm sorry, that in particular for the dimensional regulations is, well, it starts on page 2, I should say. All of the dimensional regulation considerations start on part 2,
Page 4.
page 6. Page 6 of the report that I drafted for you, part 2 of the referral from your council,
So the considerations on page 4 refer to what?
The considerations on page,
Starting on the bottom of page 4 refer to what?
starting, talk about every single part that was provided to you. Actually, Mr. Callahan saved the side yard setback, which I made a note already to add in the conversation, so I'll do that.
I did have a question on page 3. It's probably not pertinent, but, so you've got a breakout of how many parcels are less than 10,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Almost 4,000 parcels. Did you have a breakdown of where those are? How many are in R80, how many are in R40, how many are on 20?
Yes, I showed it to you last week. You bet I did.
Perfect, I might not this.
Yep, that's okay.
Okay, so
and
it's not in this, it's in
Oh, no, that's okay.
somewhere.
Hold on, Mr. Eastman. I might have printed it out. Let me see.
I have last week's thing too, so I'm sure.
It was part
So,
of the
you want to know
slides.
less than 10,000 or
That
less
was
than?
part of the
Part of the
slides.
slides, Steve.
It was part of the slideshow.
Okay,
Oh,
well, I
you
was
have
just
it?
thinking,
They got
because
that?
I'm reading this.
Thank you.
And you've got, you know,
That's
the terrifying 90% deficient lots. And then in the next, then 2 paragraphs later, you have the number of deficient lots, but they're not all in R80.
No,
So,
they're definitely not all in
It
R80.
seemed to imply that
Okay.
almost 4,000 were in the R80, so almost 4,000 lots are gonna be at, 3-foot side yard setbacks. I don't
Understood. I'll put a bigger gap in there. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yep. So to answer your question from last week, in the R10 zone, there were under 5,000 square feet. There were 534 lots. I asked Ryan in our office to look at 6,100 square foot lots because sometimes a lot of the neighborhoods are zoned 6,000 or
Yeah.
6, but they're 6,002, 6,010, and I wanted to catch those lots that were close to 6. So we went to
Makes sense.
6,100.
I remember that part.
Say it again.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. So we had inclusive of the under 5, we had about 1,300, and then lots in the R10 and R10A total under 10,000 was about 2,800.
Okay.
Okay, so for the R20, I did 700 lots less than 10,000, and then 1,300 lots less than 20. The requirement for R. In the R40, we had about 99 lots less than 10,000, 188 less than 20, and about 500 less than 40. And the R80 we had, so it's kind of interesting. We excluded Chafee. I don't know if you, so where Chafee Wildlife Preserve is, so it's a few different locations, but the Chafee Wildlife Preserve in particular that I'm referring to is the one, if you're driving down Foundering Farm going to Harbor Island, for instance, on your right-hand side there's a single row of houses and then a nice vast open space. That's the Chafee Wildlife Preserve. That's all been platted out, and they're about 8,000 square foot lots. So we did some real quick calculations, and we pulled those out of the calculations because while there's probably a couple dozen that are privately owned, the majority of them are Chafee Wildlife. So excluding those in the R80 zone, we have about 376 lots that are less than 10,000, 1,190 that are less than 20, and then 1,554. So think of that number as inclusive, by the way. So that 1,554 includes the 1,190 and the 376.
Gotcha.
Alrighty, and then just as a total, you asked me the question of all the lots. So for all residential parcels, less than 5,000, I don't know if you remember the map, but I can show it to you from here, but it's about 720 lots that are less than 5,000, 1,600 that are less than 6,100, and about 4,500, just over, almost 40, I'm sorry, not 4,500, yeah, about 4,500, 4,451 that are less than 10,000. That's in all of the residential zones.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I was.
So that's the number that should be in here, right? Did I get that right? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That number is inclusive. That number is inclusive of Chafee. I removed Chafee in here.
Gotcha.
So it's 3975.
Gotcha. All right. All right, so with the modifications and the other deficiency stuff, we're talking about in R80 anyway, 376 lots. That this, you guys catch with that, which I don't think it's a bad idea to call those out in a separate, I think that would be better if you called those out in a separate thing. But I understand that's expensive. I don't want to go down that route. So I just wanted to make sure, because it seems like from this report, you know, there's almost 4,000 lots that could be 3 feet from their neighbor, but it's really a little less than 400. They could get exception.
No, I wouldn't agree or disagree to that. I think Mr. Doherty he brings a good point, which is there should be a higher analysis done on those lots because it's not just R80. It's non-compliant R40 lots. It's non-compliant R20 lots. It depends on what your non-compliance is. If you're a
but your
if
deficiency
you're a
is not
5,000
as-
square foot lot, for instance, bear with me. If you're
It's
a 5,000 square foot lot, for instance, in an R20, you're 75% deficient, so you automatically get 75% off plus the modification. I think that was the larger point.
Yeah.
Of is any lot under 10,000 is going to revert back to its original zone, and if it's not an R10, it gets the proportional difference gets much larger, right? It doubles from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80.
Yep.
So.
No, I completely agree. I just wanted to come back to we're making sweeping townwide, just as Mr. Doherty said. The previous town council made sweeping townwide changes to every single lot to address what is not an enormous problem. It maybe could have been a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer to address those things. I don't want to go through the entire town and, you know, that's a very expensive thing to do. But, so that's why the minimum 4 feet seems to be a catch-all. I don't mind 5 feet. You guys have 5 and 8. I think 4 is okay, but 5 and 8, I know I'm not going to turn you on that. I'm going to try, but I didn't turn you. So I just wanted to make, because in my head I'm like, Jesus Christ, is there really 4,000 lots that are going to get that close? But it's not. So there's a lot, but it's not 4,000, and it's certainly over 1,000 that were in, like you said, they were in conformance, and many of them are now not in conformance.
It would be over 4,000 lots that would receive the proportional setback or the proportional lot coverage allowance and then the modification.
Yeah, but not all of those would modify it down to what you've got here as an example.
No.
3.4
I
feet.
just wanted to show the extremes of two
course.
lots, the same size, a buildable lot. But, right, so I could have done it, I could have broken it out 10, 20, 40.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make more work
Time is
for
of
you.
the essence,
Of
Mr.
course.
Snow.
It just, when it said 4,000 in the next paragraph, I was like, damn, 4,000 of them? Are they gonna get that tight? But I just wanted to let everybody know, it's not 4,000. It's less. But that's fine. We can keep it cruising.
So on this section, this is where I proposed recommending, it says, I have two versions, sorry. It's page 6 at the top, part 2. So section 4.5, high water table limitations overlay district. And this is where I suggested that if changed back to the previous coverages for the business and industrial because of the lot size, I don't think it would dramatically impact the character in the neighborhood. I think on the residential lots, because this is like preventing flooding from neighbors, I think it is important. So that's what I was recommending. I don't know how you folks feel about that, whether you are in agreement with that, or whether there's consensus on that, or anyhow.
What do you think, guys?
Back to a question for the solicitor. Does the act provide the exact same 15% relief for every lot, or does it apply to residential lots? Because they call it the residential. So even commercial and
I don't think it
lots.
distinguishes. Is that what you're?
It doesn't distinguish.
It doesn't distinguish.
When you read the act, it talks about it being related to housing, but there's no limitation on it for.
Right.
So it's a question, can you do a modification in the commercial zone?
Yes.
I just did one in Cranston, so.
Okay.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
If you have the right attorney.
I'm still in the appeal period, so don't read them.
And that was the Warren issue, I'm sorry, that was the Wicked Inn issue, right?
Mhm.
They were trying
Yes.
to erroneously apply the 50%.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it was a great compromise, Rupert, to cut out the industrial and the business sections. I agree. I'd still like to posit that we could go back, we could recommend to the town council that they go back only 10% instead of the full 15%, because then you've got notice at least on all the waivers that would exceed previous zoning.
Sorry, say that again?
So the first 5% waiver request is without notice. And the only person who gets to decide whether or not you're gonna get that waiver is our zoning official, who, I read the law again today, and we can ask counsel. I think he has quite a bit of leeway to say no to those waiver requests. I know that Rupert doesn't agree with me.
Yeah, I mean.
But at the very least, if you go back to just a 5% increase in the setbacks instead of 15%, the 5% waiver request will get you back to the original setbacks. And then if you want a further waiver of up to 10% additional, that has to get notice to your abutters and notice to the town via, a newspaper listing. So I wanted to posit that particular compromise to you gentlemen. I don't know if I can get anybody on board with that, but I thought that would be an elegant compromise, because what I heard from our previous meetings was we're very concerned about notice. And that seems to me to make a lot of sense. You do want to notify your neighbors, and this at least would give everybody back what was taken, not all of it, but enough so that when you went and asked for a waiver, you only have to deal with Wayne to get back to where you were before we did this. I know you guys are worried about the second modification thing that the state did also, but there's a lot of stuff that was conforming that now isn't. And I'm concerned about that as well. I'm concerned about both issues.
Yeah, so
Can I ask you?
It doesn't make sense.
So Nick, I just, on the issue of conforming.
Sorry.
I just want to.
It just doesn't make sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Mr. Doherty's argument is essentially by the council's action in 2023, it made properties across the town non-conforming. Is that an accurate assertion or not?
I know Joe's jumping out of her seat. I'm not sure it was the right word, or it would depend specifically at what was going on the ground. The setbacks were modified. I wouldn't use that term of art in a broad sense. That's a legal term of art.
So the setbacks were modified, does it bring, and did it cause any, would it have caused any property as a result of simply that action to be deemed, that wasn't already non-conforming, to be deemed non-conforming?
So you move them closer to this.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
No, so, do you mind?
No, please.
Okay,
It's-
I'm gonna take a shot at this and Nick is gonna tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Is that all right?
We're speaking in the abstract, so
Right.
you'll get your head around it.
Hypothetical.
So,
Hypothetical.
Yeah.
the reason why I'm
And the reason I'm
concerned
asking,
over here is.
hold on, and the reason I'm asking is it goes to Steve's point in terms of this assertion that's been made a couple of different times in public, that as a result of the actions, there was basically literally, I can't, the number of properties were deemed to be now non-conforming that were previously conforming.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so nowhere did we change the lot area required. We don't now require 10,000, or 11,500 feet. So an R10 is an R10 is an R10, and it's always been an R10, or same thing. So no lot has been non-conforming in its zone. We didn't change that. I believe that what we're referring to is a dimensional
Right.
non-conformity.
Right.
So if you have a regular lot, R10 lot that had 10-foot side yard setbacks, and that applicant built out to his side yard setbacks, and now his setbacks are 12 feet, he would have had to have received a modification to get to that 10 feet. If that applicant or that property owner had built to, in a substandard lot, built to 8 feet, which is what was which used to be allowed, hence the 8 feet for 3 stories, Dr. O'Neill. And it was a substandard lot of record. Let's say it was a 6,000 square foot lot and an R10. You would have been allowed to build to 8 feet, but now you can actually go to 6 feet. Are you following? I'm sorry. You can actually go to, yes, you can actually go to 6 feet. So there is no dimensional nonconformity. You can actually get closer.
So just to be clear, we'll use my house as an example.
That's not what I'm-
My house is 32 feet tall. I am now a non-conforming structure. My lot is perfectly conforming. I conformed to everything when I built my house, it was conforming. Now my house is non-conforming.
So what's the consequence of that?
So, great question, Rupert. I cannot ask for a variance to become more non-conforming. Now, in height, I'm not a lunatic. I wouldn't ask you for a 40-foot variance, but my side yard, which is pretty close to now being non-conforming, if it were 2 feet closer to my lot line, I wouldn't then be able to add an addition to that side of the house, even though beforehand I would have been able to come ask for a variance, and you may have been able to grant it, or the zoning board may have been able to grant it. The zoning board now cannot. You cannot become more non-conforming. So you made people, some people, not a lot of people, but some people, you made them non-conforming, and they now can't become more non-conforming. Sides, rears, height.
No.
Is that, Nick, is that true, Mr. Salitro? I'll ask the lawyers, because that's my interpretation.
Mr. DeSimone, in your height, I think you're referring to, if you have a non-conforming height and you want to ask for a side yard dimension,
I understand, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I can't become taller because I'm now non-conforming. If it were on my side, my house was still conforming on the side yard. But if it were now non-conforming, if I had built to my setbacks, on a conforming lot of record,
I got you.
now I can't ask for a
I
variance.
got you. So the question is, if he shows up and looks for relief now, under those circumstances, would his house be deemed non-conforming and not eligible for relief? That's the question.
I think it may.
If him-
I think it may. And we had Wayne in here. I'd be interested to see how he would interpret that.
I saw him earlier, I didn't put any of that.
Section of the code, Bill?
Question, sorry, I'm so confused.
I'm sorry?
why are you, Mr. DeSimone, I don't want to get too far afield because about your property, because
Yeah, I
Because I
don't
believe you
want
live in
to
an
either.
R80 and you have plenty of room.
I got plenty of room.
All right.
I mean, I don't because there's wetland constraints. I literally can't get
Right,
it bigger.
but are you saying, and I just want to, because I'll ask the question to Wayne tomorrow, are you saying that because your house is 32 feet now, and in your understanding, it's non-conforming, and you couldn't go to 35 feet?
That is my.
Okay, because we were talking about a side
Yes.
yard setback for a
Yeah,
minute, and
because
I was very confused.
I was changing
how
it
they
for adding an
relate.
addition and that, but if I wanted to go to 35 feet so I could move my, say, in-laws into the first floor, and, put 2 floors above it, I now presumably could not do that.
Okay, well, that's a good question for Mr. Pimentel. I certainly can't answer that, maybe
Yeah.
Dick can, but I wonder, because that 35 would still be under what the original relief plus the modification would be if you could not go. Now, if you went to 40 feet, as you first mentioned,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Of
I
course.
think that you
But
might
I'm-
find the more non-conforming.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out in every setback, because we adjusted every setback, there are plenty of properties that are now non-conforming. That before, maybe they were conforming by 6 inches. They could have come and asked for a variance and had it granted. Now they cannot. They can ask for it, but we can't grant it, because you can't make a structure more non-conforming. So that's one of the things that I have a problem with this, which is why I'm in favor of going back to 15%.
Do you know the section of the code for non-conforming?
Section 9.1.
Did you want to add anything, Nick, or not?
Mr. DeSimone made his point. There was a time, Mr. DeSimone, where you were legal, in our hypothetical here that applies to your house. Time where you were legal, the zoning ordinance was changed to make you a non-conforming because you were legal.
Yeah.
So I see your point, and I think it applies. We're talking setbacks, so maybe height threw everybody for a loop, but the same can be said about a setback, where you are legal, the ordinance is changed, making you non-conforming, limiting or prohibiting the relief that you can get if you wanted to go further out.
Yeah.
We said that in the beginning. I said that in the beginning with an R10. If you were already built out, then you would be, if you're built out to 10 feet, and the ordinance is now. But if you're looking at the substandard lots of record, which is how we first started this conversation, I believe. You're not making something more non-conforming. In fact, you might have more. In many cases, you might have more wiggle room. But
Yeah, but that brings me back to my.
this is dead.
This was done with a sledgehammer, not a scalpel. It didn't call out just non-conforming lots. It called out everything.
All I'm saying is
So.
that I think it's nuanced, as Mr. Doherty,
Oh.
who unfortunately isn't here,
Of
pointed
course.
out.
I
Right.
agree, it's nuanced. That's why I'm not in favor of what was done, because it took a sledgehammer where a scalpel would have been more appropriate. And I appreciate you coming in with a scalpel later and and proposing some changes, Rupert.
Well, I also think that if you look at the data of the impact, like who needs to apply for variances, it's a really small percentage of the zoning permits.
Well, you can tell that to a family who wants to put an addition on. I'm not gonna tell them that.
So, there's anecdotal about that. There's anecdotal on other sides. I think we need better data, and I think we don't have good data in the town. And I think that's one of the recommendations we should put forward.
Okay. We probably got pretty good data.
We don't.
No?
You're
right, 'cause
I spent a lot of time looking through the.
You're right, just
through
the stuff
decisions for
you
the
presented
past
last
5
week
years.
didn't have the applications that don't go anywhere, so right there, this
It
missing data point.
It doesn't have the
So,
applications that
yeah.
can go to planning and zoning.
Yep, you're right, so there's holes, for sure.
Holes, there's not good information.
Yeah, holes in the information is what I meant.
But
Yeah.
just to make the final point for me, so I got this clear, if you built out to 10 feet, and as a result of the enactment of the 23 ordinance, that setback would be no more than 8 feet now. And you're built out to 10, you are non-conforming. For the town, for the purposes of zoning, are you considered non-conforming and not dimensionally non-conforming?
If you were an R10 lot, you would have, a compliant R10 lot, you would have and you built out, you would be at 10 feet.
I'm saying if you had already built out to 10 feet,
Mhm.
let's say you finished your addition in the year 2020, and you built out to 10. And now as a result of the piece that was enacted in 2023, that setback was now established as 8. Right?
That would've gone the other way.
No,
The
it would
math
have gone
goes
the other
the
way, it
other
would have gone
way.
to 12.
Would have been greater setbacks.
10 would go to 12, 8 would go to 10.
It would have gone to 12, and then with
So-
the 15% modification, you get to 10.
I guess to that point then, math-wise, how do we, is there a scenario under which the enactment of the ordinance in 2023 would have caused some properties to be non-conforming? Which I think is Steve's point.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if everything works to provide more relief than less, then it sounds to me like you can't get there from here, but that's not what Steve's saying. I'm trying to understand this.
If you're a compliant lot, meaning you are 10,000 square feet and you have the frontage, everything's, you're 100 by 100, and you have built out to your 10-foot setbacks, and now your setbacks are 12 feet after 2023, that structure would not have been able to build to 10 feet without that 15% modification. Are you following me?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not.
That's okay.
I'll take a stab at it. You built out to 10-foot setbacks. The zoning ordinance changes, requires setbacks to be 12 feet. At that juncture, you are dimensionally non-conforming.
Right.
Because you couldn't build to
Right.
10 feet at that point.
Right. So are you
Without a
deemed-
modification.
Correct.
Are you deemed to be non-conforming right now? Dimensionally non-conforming.
Yeah, because it hasn't changed. I believe you are.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay.
So maybe the solution, Steve, is to revise the language in our non-conforming ordinance.
Is that anything else?
Sure, do you wanna send everything back the way it was and then change the non-conforming ordinance piece? I think that would be more of a scalpel approach. I'd certainly be open to that. I mean, that's, I don't know if we can do that now, or if we'd have to ask the
No, I mean,
council, or.
there's a lot of stuff that we can't do now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's a great point, though. I think
I
that
think-
would be a much better approach.
I think Patrick's suggestion about zoning lots that are, I think we should create a R5 zone.
That's what I thought.
And I think that would address a lot of the issues too.
Yeah, because then rather than being deficient in an R80, you'd be you'd get R5
Yeah.
treatment.
But
So-
exactly, but we don't have that.
Yeah,
so.
no, I agree. There's lots of different things we could do. Right now, we're talking
That's
about
what we're
this,
trying to
and
do.
that was a big concern of mine.
I think the Rupert's thing about needing data, and I don't know the history of every zone in all over town, but I do know the history of the zone in Harbor Island. And when you read Mr. Beauregard's original standards when he broke up the island, he had 5,000 square foot minimum lots, he had 5-foot side setbacks, he had no fences, he required a masonry chimney in every unit, no tar paper siding, no chickens, he put everything in there.
Well and septic system.
He did require well, because we didn't get water until I think, at 1958 or 59. The point there is that if you were to look at an area like that, and I look at my neighborhood, there are a couple of larger lots in Harbor Island, but there aren't many. The bulk of the lots, as you pull in, as was said, are 8,000 square foot or less, and there's a plethora of 5,000 square foot lots on the island. So the question is, do we actually have the appropriate zoning now, or should the island have a 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 square foot, which would give less relief because there would be fewer non-conforming lots. So we would actually put
solve a lot
teeth
of the problem.
into it. You know, if you put us on Harbor Island into a R10, R20 zone, the bulk of the lots start off getting 40, 50% relief right from the word go.
Right.
That's a lot of work though, because you're gonna wind up having Breakwater Village approach to so many places. You know, the North End, Pettiquomskip, that area, that's all those were 6,000 square. I mean, not that it isn't a good idea, but
I think that the zoning, once you establish your sizes on the zones, where you place them is very simple, because the conditions of an R5 or R8 zone would be the same, be it in Mattatuxet, Pettiquomskip, Breakwater Village, wherever you place it, it would be the same standard.
That's true.
But we're not gonna do that tonight, right?
No,
Well,
but
that-
we do have a recommendation in the report to do exactly that.
All right.
Yes,
We
you
do
do.
have-
You have a consideration exactly
To
that.
Steve's point, it's not cheap. It's likely not to be cheap. But in terms of getting to a framework, to your point, Jim, that is based on facts on the ground, and Patrick's point, facts on the ground, it would get us a lot closer to where we need to be. But you can't, but the point of the tale is, if we started that tonight, if the town council agreed to it and started it next in January, it's not something that's gonna be done for, you pick it, let's say a year or two.
Well, we have
In-
a time obligation
In the
on this.
meantime, we gotta do this, you know what I'm saying? So, but there is a recommendation in there that addresses that exactly.
So moving right along.
So, to your point, Rupert, I have no problem with the reverting on everything non-residential on the high water table district.
I'd be supportive of that as well.
I'd still like to see the residential also get the 10%, so, but I appreciate the attempt to compromise there, Rupert.
Okay,
So,
where were we?
sounds like we have
Mr. Chair,
a
Mr.
4-1.
Chairman, are we, is the thought, this go around to do something similar to what you did in April, which was to get a consensus for each one of these parts? How did you want to approach it?
Well, yeah, you're gonna have to have consensus, whether it's on the entire document or on each section.
Well, the sections for
And it's simpler to just do
consideration,
it by consensus at the end, but,
well, the end is gonna be a vote. The end will be a vote.
yeah,
So similar to what you did last time was you took with the 14 amendments, you
yep,
took each chunk
yep,
and then you came up with a consensus, whether it was unanimous or not.
yep, for each of the 14, yep.
Yeah, this is sort of that on a smaller level,
Mhm.
where there's only 15 parts, or however many parts there were. Is that the thought? Well, let me throw it to you, Mr. Friday, because
Yeah.
you're the one who
Yeah, you want,
verbalized it
you want a
last week.
decision, the answer's yes.
I guess it sort of, Doc's perspective is we're gonna have one voter in the whole document. I don't know at this point if we have this discussion for each piece, if we're gonna have a different outcome for any of the pieces, so I'm not sure.
Well, I didn't know if it's some of the pieces you might have unanimous support for, and some of them you might not.
Okay.
I'm asking the
Yeah.
question, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm asking the question.
You're not gonna know unless you do it that way.
If we were to do it that way, I'm just
Mhm.
saying, which to me makes a lot of sense, then perhaps the way to move through this with some ease is to refer to the council's referral, take it part 1, part 2, part 3 through part 15, see where people are, right?
This is written that way, so we can do that, yeah.
But I mean, just go right through it, see where people are in each one of the parts. And then you basically have a sense for where the consensus lies, or how strong the consensus lies in each one of the parts, and then an overall vote on the report. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like we did?
Sounds good, yeah.
Like we did last time? Okay.
That'll get us through this
So.
here all night. I'll keep arguing with everybody.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, it's a discussion, all right? But anyhow, we have to
I'll
get
keep
done.
discussing.
So
We
keep
have to
going.
So on this one, it sounds like we have a majority, but not unanimous, is
This,
that, part 2?
Section 4.5.
It's a different page, yeah.
right here.
Yep.
It's, gotcha. Yep, yep, yep. I just wanna make sure we're all on the same, where we are.
So to be clear, the motion on part 2 is to roll that back to the 2023.
For industrial and
For
commercial.
industrial.
It wouldn't be a motion though, Mr. Grundy.
No, well,
Yeah.
okay, the
Just a consensus,
the
yes.
consensus.
Yeah. So, sounds like we have a majority, but not
Yes,
unanimous.
please. I'm sorry, on part 2, that's the high water table limitations overlay district, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So part 3 and 4 is breakwater.
I'm sorry, did you take a consensus on part 2 and I missed
I
it?
think we did.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
4-1, just me dissenting on that.
4-1, thank you.
No problem. Right? I won't put words in your mouth.
4-1 to
Seems
roll
like
back
we're-
to 2023.
On commercial and industrial.
Yes. I think notice, we need to address that separately because we can always modify the notice requirement across the board.
Okay, but, so the rolling back on, I'm gonna make it more complicated. Rolling back on the commercial and industrial still leaves residential the same.
Correct.
Well,
So now it's getting like
no, no,
3-2 over here.
we're only talking about the commercial, that's all that's addressed there. We haven't discussed the residential within the high water table.
So the proposal I put forward was maintaining the dimensions for residential and revising the standards for business and industrial back to what they were before December 2023.
Yeah, it's his first sentence up here.
I mean, again, I would agree to the commercial, but for the reasons I said in the very beginning, I have an issue with retaining anything of the change from a constitutional standpoint.
I guess just for the purposes of clarity, Jim, so are you saying you can't support it or you can't?
I can support the rollback of the commercial. I don't support the retention
Retention.
of the residential.
So it sounds like it's 5-0 on the rollback, on the reversion, and 3-2, don't want to put words in Doc's mouth, 3-2 on the
Sounds
retention of the residential. Right?
Right.
Seems accurate.
And we're still in part 2?
Correct.
Yeah, yes. It'll come up again, don't worry.
Okay, so then when you say business and industrial, you mean the BA, BB, BC,
Yeah.
AI,
Yep.
okay. Okay, thank you. Can we jump back 1 minute? We didn't talk about part 1, and I don't have it in my, thank you. I don't have it in my draft.
Yeah, I don't have.
Yeah, I don't have anything that says part 1.
I know, neither do I, shame on me.
Part 1 is
it's
coverage
a
O, and I didn't
building
talk about it at all. I
coverage.
mean, building coverage.
So that was just rolling, so this is the sun deck allowance. Is everyone familiar with the sun deck allowance?
No, illuminate me.
Let's see what you did.
Oh, no, this is where you're allowed, the porch doesn't count, but the sun deck does, something
No,
like that,
that's
right?
site coverage. In R10
Okay.
and R20 zones, if you max out your lot coverage, if you meet and don't exceed, or you're proposing to meet and don't exceed your coverage, then you can get, so if I'm allowed 1,000 square feet of coverage on my lot, and I have 1,000 square foot home, I've maxed it out, but I can get an extra 15% sun deck, an extra 150 square foot open sun deck. It doesn't count toward my coverage. That's what this is. And I can get into the nuances of it, it's not germane.
Okay.
So it's a bonus. You get more sun deck.
Oh, so this is, so the 10 to 15, the modification
It's
just
going,
increase the size of the deck you could have over your total site coverage?
yeah.
All right, that's fine with me.
It sounds like it. Something else.
Yeah, I like a bigger deck.
There you go.
No? You don't like a deck?
Everybody likes it. So moving right along.
Did you want to wait for Mr. Friday? Or did he
That's
already?
probably a thought,
Not a terrible one either.
but is there something we can discuss in this section?
Well, the next section is Breakwater Village,
Yeah,
which I think is, which I think is pretty, which I think is pretty straightforward, right?
right.
I think.
We agreed that where it says the board would also consider revising the accessory structure, you got it. We removed that because the association wants to maintain, they want to maintain all of their dimensional regulations as they currently are, including their sheds, including their accessory structures, but they want to make the change for the shed of which Mr. Harrison provided.
Right, right. So we have consensus on that?
This is Breakwater Village.
We'll have Mr. Fry's opinion and then move on.
Do you have consensus on 3 and 4? Unanimous?
Well,
I think
how
so.
about Mr.
Yeah.
You're, okay.
I think,
You know what you're voting for. so-
yeah, I mean, I felt like the person that spoke tonight was pretty clear on what they wanted.
Clarified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we go back to 1, Mr. Friday's back?
Yes.
Part 1, Rupert, that is the sun deck allowance.
Reverting back to 15%.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
So I think that's a clear consensus.
And that is to roll back to revert back to 2023, correct?
Yep.
So we're moving on to part 5, for the Galilee. Mr.
And
Fry?
this is where I recommended reverting them all, I bet we have consensus on this. Reverting all of the dimensional regulations in this section back to December. This is where I would add the words prior to December 2023, just to be clear there, Joe.
Under part 5?
Just the actual underlying language.
Oh, yes. What I will likely do, unless someone wants me to do, unless the board wants me to do something different, is I'm gonna revise this to say you've discussed, and that similar to what we did the last time. At the bottom, the consensus was
Yeah,
to
but,
do this
but I mean,
with the vote.
I
Yeah.
want to be clear on the language so people aren't debating
Got it.
about what do we mean by
Right.
December 2023, because
Yeah.
both sides were there in December 2023.
Yes, you bet. I got it. Thank you.
Part 6, same thing. I think we have consensus on that.
I'm in.
All right. Consensus. Moving on, part 7.
This is a dimensional
So my guess is we've got consensus on the VA through UR table on 6 in terms of reversion, if that was to be the case. I'm gonna save we're gonna have to come back to the residential bond just to kind of knock something out. I presume no one's got an objection to a reversion to the original?
on BA and industrial, yeah.
Yes. You got consensus on that?
And I think,
Okay.
and I think probably accessory structure height as well.
An accessory structure height on the residential, on the residential side, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You got that, Joe?
No.
And then-
We're rolling here.
Well, you
then-
probably don't recall, but last week I stapled my papers backwards. So, I'm still looking for 7.
And
Okay.
then,
I'm sorry, so did we put part 7 on hold for a minute? And we jumped to part,
We put 6 on hold, jumped to 7.
nope, 6 you voted.
6 we
Six.
did.
6 you consented.
The plan
We voted on,
Oh,
we
Jesus.
voted on 7.
Sorry, I got two.
Seven-
I got
seven
2 part
was
7.
consensus?
That's right. 7 continues. My bad.
I'm
No,
sorry.
7 is 6.4, and we're going through 6.4 now. There's consent, full
there's
consent.
unanimous for the accessory structure height and for changing the business and industrial back to the standards before December 2023. And
Okay, thank you.
I would wager pretty good money that we don't have consensus on that.
That's a safe bet.
So now we're on to,
Well,
6.4 residential.
Yes.
I'm gonna throw it out there one more time, to roll it back 10% instead of the 15 requested. That way, the notice kicks in, but because we've already had the discussion about it, I see where you're coming from with the substandard, so maybe the recommendation is 3-2 on this, but we should look at the part of our zoning that addresses substandard lots of record.
But not the non-conforming.
Yes, yeah, sorry, the non-conforming, yes. Because I'm still not on board with not rolling it back. I'd like to roll it back 15, but if I can't turn anybody else on to 10%.
I'd like to roll it back 25, 30.
Not all the way. Let's have full anarchy. Nobody wants that. Somebody might, not me. So, I don't want to put words in your mouth on this one. Is anybody into the 10%? No? All right, I tried. I tried. Would you be into the 10%?
If I thought we could get a majority,
okay,
I could live with it.
But it wouldn't be consistent with the Constitution.
Well, that's going to be the standard question that, with a caveat on all of this, anything that isn't going back to 20.
Right, that's the issue for you, and I understand it, Jim.
That being said, again, the issue of creating lots that have an additional hurdle, we talked, one of the first meetings I was at, about simplifying and avoiding hurdles, and I can think of lots around me that were built at what was the standard, and now they become legal non-conformings, actually. So I'd like to go back to where we were and then revisit it item by item, which would take time. And I agree, 26 might be optimistic.
Correct. Correct. And I think we mentioned it last time. The flip side of the lost opportunity for those that came about as as a result of the actions of the General Assembly before the 15% was rolled back. The flip side of that is that people who have lived in this town, built their houses in this town, live in neighborhoods that have relied on the fact that the zone for 40 years now, that the zoning code is structured in a way that gives them some level of reliability in terms of their quiet enjoyment of their property, which would otherwise be impeded, potentially be impeded, not always be impeded, but potentially could be impeded is the flip side of that argument. So, until there's an opportunity to take a harder look based on the data, I'm not inclined to roll this thing back on the residential side for that reason.
Yep. So I just want to, because I want to add some context in, it sounds like this is going to go split. Mr. Conley, did I get that right, that both you and Mr. DeSimone both want more data?
I think everybody here wants more.
Everybody wants more data. Right, so more data on
residential vote we get.
On the effect of substandard lots of record and on the non-conforming, on the creation of non-conforming, dimensionally non-conforming lots. Okay.
And we talked about maybe looking at the ordinance language for non-conforming, for building on non-conforming lots, the expansion. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if our ordinance, I imagine it doesn't now supersede the state law, right?
No.
No, so changing that ordinance sounds like it won't do anything, because the state law the state law gave the reverse modification for your deficiency. So if we changed ours, like Jill was saying, our ordinance on non-conforming actually gave people more freedom in some cases, right? Yeah, than the new state law.
Where they would have built to 8 and now they can build to 6.
Yes, which the state law superseded.
That's the Supreme Court decision.
No, Mr. Freddy. So if you have a 6,000 square foot lot, our previous modified dimensional regulations would have only allowed you to build to 8 feet.
Yep.
Now if you go to and then you had 10-foot side yard setback, you could have built to 6 feet with that
I got that now. I was lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just one more thing on this. So I think we're operating, I'm not sure how commonplace Narragansett's profile is with respect to the number of substandard lots and the distribution of substandard lots across the zoning, each of the zoning districts. I just don't know whether that's typical. You find that in Cranston, Warwick, Tiverton, Charleston. I just don't know how commonplace it is.
It's pretty typical.
Is it?
Anywhere where you're near the water, because in the 80s, DEM forcefully rezoned most of the state that's near their jurisdictional areas. For instance, my neighborhood, I hate to keep using my neighborhood, it's R80. It wasn't R80 before the 80s when DEM put in the SAMP plan, and anybody anywhere near salt water got upzoned to R80 when it was, I don't know what it was before, but it wasn't R80. So,
Okay.
so it is, I've seen it in a lot of towns.
Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so that was part 7, 6.4, we're looking like a 3.2?
Yeah, part 8, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So part 8 is the FAR table, and this is where we had the discussion last week, where Jim, you were talking about the state limiting the modifications, that it doesn't apply to
The question that I had, and I guess there's some differing opinions, but is lot size actually something that's subject to dimensional relief, or is lot size a classification?
Right, and that's, so we had, I mean, the one case that was sent to me, because when this was written, there was no, I think the language you read last time was from the, what do they call it, neighborhood-based character, neighborhood character-based modifications, which limits modifications to certain kinds of things, but when it was originally passed, it was literal dimension requirements of the zoning ordinance, and so the case that Jill set out after that meeting in Providence, the judge very specifically says that in that case, the standards that they were trying to get a modification for weren't in the dimensional table standards, and our lot size is in the dimensional table standards. So I would say that by his decision, that it would qualify. So I would go back to keeping the 23,000, because with a modification it brings it to 20,000. Otherwise, you end up with 17,000 square foot lots that are.
I think there's a little confusion. I think I can clarify.
Yep.
You can't modify the size of your lot. The person who's applying for the modification can't modify the size of their lot. Their lot is their lot. What they could modify, potentially, is the ratio in the floor area ratio. Because that's what's in our dimensional table.
So what I'm talking about...
I know you have the 23.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about is, so if you have a 20,000 square foot lot and you ask for a modification, 15%
of the ratio
of the 70,000,
well,
so then you no longer come in under FAR, because it's 15%.
Yeah, but your lot didn't get any bigger.
No, but the modification, you're asking, the way this is written, FAR only kicks in at 20,000 square feet. So if you ask for a 15% modification, you don't have to qualify for FAR because you only have 15% of 20,000, it brings you down to 17.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So that's why.
So that would be the dimensional regulation is the 20,000 square foot cap that you're talking about modifying.
Right.
I thought you were talking about modifying the lots.
No. It's
the ratio I get.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
yeah.
So you're.
So I'm saying
you're going to modify.
I'm saying move it to 23 so that it still applies to 20,000 square foot lots, instead of people coming in for a modification saying, no, FAR doesn't apply because I want a 15% modification in my 20,000 square foot lot.
So the question to the solicitor is, can you get a modification on a lot size?
I'm going, excuse me, I'm going back and forth on it, and I read the land fair opinion out of Providence, and I see Mr. Friday's argument that while Narragansett is different than Providence's ordinance, if you follow Judge Landfair's logic, I see how you could get to your position. I'm not able to find a case on point where that's dealt with specifically.
Yeah.
Especially, and I think as Mr. DeSimone struggled, that lot size is a static number that doesn't change. So I'm being a damn lawyer here, where I can't give you a firm answer, but I agree with Mr. Friday's logic that I see how he gets there, and I agree with Mr. DeSimone's logic that how do you get a modification from something that is set in stone? Lot size, lot area is lot area. But I'm not dismissing Mr. Friday, I told you that before the meeting, in the least, because I do see the inference that you're making, and I think it's a direct, reasonable inference in the opinion by Judge Landfair.
It's where we started when we did it in 2023, that's why it went. Right. And by the way, if you were a scientist, you would be saying more study is needed.
There you go. I'll have to add that to the repertoire.
And how do other folks feel?
I'm comfortable with the 23,000, and I'm comfortable with the retaining the FAR as it was rolled back to 2023.
Doc?
Again, this is for residential.
Right,
This is
for
for
residential.
Doc's comfortable? I'd like to see it rolled back, so that's one the other way.
Yep.
Mr.
I'm
Grundy?
in favor of the rollback.
Same. All right, 3-2.
So was that one vote for the 23,000 and retaining, and it went 3-2?
Correct.
Okay, hold on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Bet the next one's gonna go about the same.
So that's part A, sort of part 9. And I suspect we have a 3-2 vote here. So I'm proposing
Where are you now?
part 9, which is
Hardscape, softscape?
Yes.
page 9.
There you go.
Yep.
Supplementing zone regulations.
And that's where I'm proposing retaining the current regulations for hardscape, softscape, which is part of FAR.
And I'm comfortable leaving it at 23.
Doc, you comfortable?
Yep, I am.
Same thing? Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing?
Same
Over
thing.
here, 3-2?
Me too.
I'm sorry, that was part 9?
Yep.
Part 9.
Part 10, I think we'll have unanimous here, on the first part at least. We discussed supporting revisions back to the height standards for accessory structures before what they were before December of 2023.
Everybody agree?
I'm comfortable with moving it.
Yep.
Are you comfortable with both sides, both sections?
And then, yeah, so the second piece I recommended, the last paragraph in the text has language in there, accessory building or structure 15,000 square feet in ground floor area or greater than 5 point, and then it has the height. In height shall constitute a special use permit, shall require a site plan review and approval in accordance with the provisions of section 17.8. I'm suggesting just striking the language or greater than 18 feet in height because it's already covered by the previous section.
Sure.
Yep, makes sense.
So moved.
And section 11, which
So consensus there, Joe.
Got it, thank you, unanimous.
Okay.
section 11, which I believe is industrial maximum lot coverage, and I proposed reverting back to what it was before December 2023. And this is one, Jill,
Got it.
where the language.
Yep, just saw it, yep, thank you.
You guys disagree?
Nope. Well, there too, Rupert.
We'll take
Nicely
every,
done.
even the small victories add up.
Consensus, part 12?
That's the same development standards for nursing, convalescent homes, group homes, or orphanages. And recommended revising back those standards before December of 2023. You need to add the before in there. Consensus?
Everybody agree?
Yes, sir.
Consensus, moving on.
The same thing with 13 for motels and tourist ports.
Everybody agree?
Yep.
14, that's the standards for cluster development. And recommended revising the standards to before December 2023.
Everybody agree? Whoops.
You,
Did I miss something?
I don't know. I'm sorry, we're on multifamily.
Cluster, residential
Cluster.
cluster.
No, part 14.
Part 14.
Residential cluster developments, Joe.
Thank you. Okay, part 14, you're recommending reverting back?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that I have it, I've said that loud, and that is because, cluster subdivisions are not considered substandard lots of record, Mr. Salitro?
No, they're allowed as a separate entity.
Okay. So they're not considered, so they wouldn't, like if I built a cluster R10 and an R80, that those R10 lots as part of the cluster they're treated as an R10 lot.
R10. Say it again.
That's the explanation Bob gave.
That was the
Yeah.
explanation Bob gave, so I just want to make sure, since we have a different
Yep.
attorney tonight,
Yep.
that, so Bob,
If it was fleshed out, I defer to Bob. That's seriously.
Well, I think Bob's
Easy enough.
comment, I don't want to put words in Bob's mouth, but what I took from it was that even though the individual lot might be R10, the overall acreage with the parcel, it's just a different way of divvying up. So you would have the appropriate acreage, and then you'd be approving the subdivision.
so not the approval of this subdivision, I think that, I agree with you, Mr. Carney, there. I'm talking about, we have a couple of clusters in town that I can think of, one on the north end, one on the south end. And the lots, as, you save the open space and then you have the lots, is clustered as R10 lots. I just want to make sure that those clusters, since they have their own dimensional, regulations, they don't revert back to the overall, or the underlying R80 zone. And I don't believe they do.
But wouldn't that
because
be a condition of they would have a set of governing
Yeah,
deed restrictions in docs that would place those limitations, right?
yeah, and it would refer to this. I think I answered my own question.
That's what
Okay,
Bob explained. He did.
thank you. Was that unanimous?
Yep.
Yes.
And
Moving right
the
along.
last one in that section 15, development standards for multifamily dwellings, and the same thing, support reversing of standards to what they were before December of 2023.
Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
We need the before in there too, Joe.
Thank you. I think the last thing we didn't vote on was the side yard setback.
You're right, Jim, we talked about it a bunch,
We
but
did.
we didn't up and down it.
You did not. You didn't give me a consensus on it.
Talking about 6.5?
The 5 yard.
Yes, yes.
5
Yeah, 5 foot. Expansionist.
So where are we on?
So in that 5 foot, do we have a?
fire safety?
Anybody like my idea
Biting
of
on the
excluding
4
a egress window, or are we gonna just 3-2 this thing?
I think we have to keep in mind the fact that we just supported accessory structures being 2 feet off of a property line in Breakwater Village because someone, the neighborhood as a group felt that it was favorable. It's almost hypocritical to say that 2 foot is acceptable with an accessory structure in one zone, but we're gonna increase.
Right. So,
So the accessory structures, it is still, this is 5-foot minimums for the structure, not the
Except in Breakwater Village.
Right,
Where things are tighter and more compact than most areas of town. So if fire safety is a concern and egress is a concern, and we know a lot of these sheds become he sheds and she sheds now.
So don't we have the 5-foot standard in Breakwater now?
and for many of the lots, the dimensional regulation for so houses only, or 2 stories, is 5 feet. That's what we talked about last week. The accessory structure that Mr. Grundy is talking about, that's a maximum of 50 feet and 9 feet tall.
Maximum of 50?
50 square feet.
50
Oh,
square
50
feet.
square feet, yes.
50 square feet.
But the distance now that we're recommending is only 2 feet from a property line.
Right, so, but it's a much smaller structure. It's 50 square feet and 9 feet tall as opposed to a dwelling.
It's a smaller fire.
It's a small one. We might have an expert.
The majority of the town's not Breakwater Village, so, they still go, you know,
I could, I like the idea if it doesn't have an egress window, and I think or if there were other modifications, because it seems like fire safety is the primary, the aesthetic is secondary to the life safety.
That's 2 for within the window. Anybody down there?
I'm not going there, Steve. You know, I just,
It's worth a shot.
no, I understand. I understand. You know, I have a little different life experience than Doc's. I've been responsible for the health and welfare for 18,000 undergraduate students and 5,000 graduate students on a major campus with dormitories and the rest of it. And fire safety has always been kind of a prominent piece of where you don't want, at some point in time you may fail, but you don't want to fail for that lack of thinking it through and trying to do everything you can. So I understand it, and again, you get to that point where we're talking about 12 inches here. I'd like to support Steve, but I can't.
Fair enough.
we all have opinions. So that's 3-2. Moving right along. Where are we?
We're
think that was all.
overall.
Overall, there we go.
Is there anything related to the additional dimensional relief to qualified property owners? Are we going to discuss that at all?
Yeah, I wanted to, we had asked Bob the last time he was here, Nick, and I don't know whether you can opine on this. It sounds like there may have been a gap. The question raised last time out was whether or not there was a way to advantage people in town who are deemed eligible for the homestead exemption here, which means they live here, they don't rent their property. There's one other provision as well. Advantage them essentially with either additional relief under the thought process that these are folks that town council heard quite a bit about, people wanting to make accommodations for their families. And it would be permanent residents. So I don't know whether there's a way to do this or not, but I wanted to raise it.
So I can see why a municipality would want to do it. Coincidentally, for another municipality, I'm researching the benefits that you can provide in town versus out of town.
Mm-hmm.
I have concerns when it becomes a property right, because we get to greater protections in the law when it comes to somebody's property. I have not seen that in the past, where if you live here for more than your neighbor, you get greater benefits. I have not seen that in Rhode Island, so I can't give you a path to go down that route. And there are distinctions in the law, such as if you're a resident in town, you pay less to go to the beach. We know that you can make distinctions. But when it gets to somebody's property, my gut tells me it crosses the line, and I can't say, okay, that something happened in Tiverton or elsewhere where you could follow that path.
So let me push it just a little bit.
Sure.
This is based on somebody owning property, right? Versus somebody who, I mean, they both, a resident, non-resident, both own property. The resident is advantaged tax-wise here by essentially getting some type of a tax exemption. I think it's 10% on, I'm not sure what the tax, the tax bill is assessed value of the house. That doesn't provide some type of a weigh in on this?
It may. Off the cuff, it comes down to an equal. We're treating similarly situated or slightly differently situated folks differently under the law. You can do that in certain categories. Again, one of the more protected areas relates to property. That's where a red flag goes up in my immediate analysis. I'm not going to give you a firm no. That can never happen. I'd have to research that. But that's kind of the analysis. It comes down to, again, off the cuff, equal protection. The law allows certain distinguishing features for similarly situated people. But when it comes to property, that's where I say, okay, it raises concerns.
And real property is treated different than money, than currency.
I don't know if it would be. I don't know if it would be.
Because at the end of the day, the benefit that accrues to the resident is essentially in the form of cash.
True.
Right? That's property, but it's not the same as real property. And the question is that a difference that makes a difference?
And that would be your argument, that if we can make a distinction at the beach, that you get a cheaper beach pass versus somebody who lives in Charlestown.
I'm not worried about beach pass.
No, but that's my example.
How much tax you pay? How much taxes you pay?
Right, but I threw out the example that you could distinguish between two different categories of folks. You may say the common denominator is money. I don't know if the courts would go that way.
I think one of the things that differentiates it is permanent versus temporary, where when you grant a resident a homestead exemption, you temporarily reduce the taxes on that property, but if the ownership changed, then the status of the taxes could change. But once you grant relief to a property and someone builds an improvement, it becomes permanent, and the relief becomes permanent, because you're not going to say, well, when you sell your house, if it's sold to a non-resident, you've got to take the addition down. So I think that there's a permanency versus a temperancy, and I think that that's, at least in my mind, that's one of the big differences.
Differences in terms of a way in or a problem?
I think it's a problem, because you're going to tell someone that okay, I'm a full-time resident, I get you're my neighbor, and you live out of state, and you guys come here for the summer. You want to put an addition on because this relief or this dimensional relief, which isn't available to you, would make your property more valuable. You put it up for sale, I buy it. I add the relief because I say that we're going to move in, and I make that my official residence, and I get my homestead exemption. And then as soon as I get that relief, I turn around and I sell it back to you. It becomes, I mean, not that someone's going to do that to add a set of stairs, but there's a permanency related to the property where that permanency doesn't exist.
Yeah, but I think if you make the benefit, I sell it back to you, I'm trying to think.
Or sell it to anybody else,
Sell it to
and realize
anybody.
the financial gain that your neighbor wasn't allowed to.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems a little discriminatory. I like that we want to encourage year-round residency.
Which is what, and it's not discriminatory from a tax point of view, because that's exactly what we're trying to do, is encourage people, permanent residents, to be here.
Right. But the minute that permanent residency changes, the tax structure changes.
Unless another permanent resident moves into that property.
Right, because they're still qualified.
They still qualify.
But
That's
if,
correct.
but if a non-permanent resident moved in, the addition still stays,
Yeah,
or the
that's right.
modification stays.
Modification stays, I couldn't agree with you more, but the intention and the incentive is essentially to say, look, if what you're hearing on the campaign trail, or what you're hearing from your constituents that come to the public, the public comment periods, I can't build something here because I want to basically keep my family here. I want to keep an aging adult in here, whatever the case might be. I want to be able to live independently through. That might last 10 years, it might last 20 years, it might last 5 years. And then the market will take care of, the property will flip, and either a resident will move in or it won't. But that doesn't negate the benefit of that individual who made the improvement to accommodate the need in his or her family as they saw it at that time, at that point in time.
Certainly interesting.
You know what I say?
We need further study.
You know what I say? Interesting is a nondescript adjective.
Moving right along.
So I guess the question is, for the purposes of the report, leave the language in, are people comfortable leaving it in, or want to see it stricken for the purposes of letting the council noodle on that and make a determination whether they want to set Jim or Nick or Bob to look at this more carefully? I don't know. I mean, from my vantage point, I don't see a harm in doing it, but others might see differently.
I don't see a harm in leaving it in, giving them something to think about. I don't think it's binding in any way.
Yep.
I don't have an objection. I mean, it's a statement. I'm just questioning the practicality of it. Ultimately, we're only sending a recommendation, so.
It might be something they send to us later.
For further study.
Correct.
Later.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
First Monday in January.
Yeah.
Well, we already got one of those. We already got
So
one
you
of
want
those
to
coming.
speak to the next one, Tom, the actual lot size, more heavily when considering
No,
granting
I want to, I mean, just the underlying principle, this may not be expressed exactly right, but the underlying principle is, what I like about FAR is FAR basically looks at the actual lot and not necessarily the zone. And giving the actual circumstances of the lot and not the zone more weight in the variance, in the modification of the variance process is what it basically, this is suggesting as a principle. It's not unlike the point that Doherty made tonight, to say, look, it would be worthwhile to kind of understand where your substandard lots are, where they're distributed in town, how many they are, by how much. Is there basically a need to create additional zoning categories that are a little bit better calibrated to what the circumstances are out there? That's essentially what this is suggesting. A, it would take time to do it. B, we may find at the end of it that there's really no, there's really no added value to it. But it seems to me that that approach is a better calibrated approach to some of the questions that we have to wrestle with for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's a scalpel approach.
Scalpel.
Very good.
With a doctor here.
A laser. It's a laser.
There you go.
Ooh. Okay, where are you gonna go?
So everybody's okay with keeping that in the report to the lot size? And then the other recommendation you had, Tom, was recodify the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I'll just say, and Steve, I think this had some resonance with you last time we talked. If you go through this maximum lot size, maximum lot coverage, building coverage, you kind of go through there, there's at least 6 or 8 terms in there, that just in this particular section of the code, that if you're an ordinary citizen and you're beginning to think about what you're going to do, you just can't do it without an attorney, or if you can't come down here and figure it out. So it's my understanding, based on a conversation with Jill, that there has not been a recodification done of the zoning ordinance since the 1990s. And so all of the changes that have happened.
So, Mr. Callahan,
Did I
the
get it right or
ordinance,
wrong?
the ordinance is actually pretty recently recodified. And what that means is it took all of the pending chapters and put it into the online code. In its entirety, that was the last time, was 1994, was when it was brought from the different sections of the municipal code and created its own Chapter 731, which we know now as Appendix A.
Okay, so the point is, if I've got it right, that 2.5 decades worth of changes have been made and accreted over time. And to your point earlier tonight, Nick, talking about something's gonna refer to something else in the chapter, that's gonna refer to something else in the chapter, and you just can't follow it from point A to point B. So for the purposes of making life simpler for residents, developers who are interested in doing work in the town,
Staff reviewing.
there's a recommendation that they do a scope in terms of saying what would it cost, what would the scope be, what would it cost to get this done, and make a determination whether or not that would be a wise investment in the town's resources. So that's what that recommendation is said to do.
I like that one. I have a question for Jill, if you don't mind. Would that be something that would make sense to do while we're updating our comprehensive plan, or is that just dumping too much stuff on the pile? Because I know that's looming. There's a lot of work looming ahead of us.
There's a lot of work looming. It is not something that would, if I believe Ms. Gunn is talking about doing the entirety of it. I can't remember the town, but I remember the firm that did it. It was a legal firm that just did one a few years ago. Nick might know. Bush and Kavanaugh did one.
Sure.
I can't remember which municipality, but typically it's a law firm that would do it, and it's a chunk of money. So it would be a capital improvement project similar to our comprehensive plan.
Okay. I just didn't know if it would make sense to do it around that time.
It would almost make sure. I mean, it seems like you might want to do your comprehensive plan first and then update your zoning accordingly.
That makes sense.
And you should know, just as a quick side note, that we are actually looking over the next 18 months, looking at updating our zoning and subdivision regulations for resilience. So it could all play nicely into each other.
Okay.
But that's a capital improvement that the council would need to sign off on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm okay with leaving it in?
Okay.
If that's the question on the
That's the
table?
question.
Yeah.
Jim, you all right?
Yes.
Yep.
So, Chairman, I have a motion and I've drafted it, but I sort of have some sort of overarching introductory language. And I think that the town needs to track and document the use of modifications and the use of adjusted building standards for substandard lots. I think we need this for transparency. We needed to track how the laws are working, so we know what's happening in the town, so we see how it's impacting neighborhoods. And I think the town council should ask the building official to submit a report annually that documents applications for building permits by type, number of applications for modifications, and how much of a modification is being asked for. For what types of development. I mean, we have data on the stuff that's been before planning and zoning, and we know there's a really high percentage of demo rebuilds, but we don't have data on the whole 5,000 building permits for the past 5 years. So I think the town council should ask the building official to do that, prepare a report. And it complements the report. We do a report annually with the stuff that goes through us and through the zoning board. And the other observation I have is I think the town should allow more time to see how the changes in standards for substandard lots are working, how they're changing the character of neighborhoods. My sense is they're going to dramatically reduce the number of applications for variances, because when you look at the applications that came through for the past 5 years, a lot of them are on substandard lots. So with the automatic change in scales, I think a lot of those won't be needed. So I think those are two things that we should recommend. But and then I put together a motion, and Joe had copies for everybody, so it's in front of you, so you can go through, because I figured it was a draft, but I figured it'd be editing on the fly. And so I make a motion that the planning board, as previously found on April 14, does not support the proposal to reduce dimensional standards 15%. throughout the zoning ordinance and revert back to standards in place before 2023. We advise the town council to not adopt the proposal as submitted to the planning board for review on November 17. We respectfully recommend that the council revise the proposal and resubmit it to the planning board for consideration. And we provided suggestions for those revisions in what we've been going through. And then I added further, we find the previous advice of planning board provided to town council in October of 2023 recommending the adoption of the 15% revision of development standards was based on sound information. Those findings that the 15% changes are not consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the aims and principles zoning ordinance are still relevant. I suspect we have a 3-2 vote on that. And then I have the 15% revision. This is that they were made in 2023 in the context of 2 other changes, the substandard lots and the authorization modifications. And my motion includes the December, what is the date of the memo today? Is it today?
It's today.
December 22 memo from Maseo, along with the April 14, 2025 memo to Alex Menzies from Mark Brady incorporated those findings, as well as the testimony from planning board meetings, March 24th, 25, April 2nd, April 3rd, and April 8th. I think I captured all those meetings.
No, we're missing one.
Okay.
Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Have that somewhere.
Yeah, I have it. Let's see.
Okay.
18, 24, 25, March 18.
Okay, sorry. And then we re-articulate and elaborate on the prior findings. The proposed before us is not consistent with the town comprehensive plan, specifically land use goal LU 2.2, which is I read them out here, but land use 2.2, and I added emphasis here, promote residential development that strengthens neighborhood, preserves open space, avoids sprawl, reinforces community character. In part B of that, use floor area ratio as a way to maintain building scale in the neighborhood. Land use policy 2.7, guide business development to ensure that it maintains community character in existing commercial and industrial areas. And A of that is review zoning to clarify the function of each business district. Consider adding new zoning categories to better regulate transitional areas between residential and heavy commercial and industrial areas. And land use 2.8, maintain and enhance community character by pursuing development of secondary areas outside the period. And G under that is evaluate zoning strategies that can help maintain neighborhood character townwide. And in housing, comprehensive planning in housing has formative issues that address this issue in front of us. Neighborhood character, tearing down, this is a quote, neighborhood character, tearing down small cottage homes and replacing them with large homes that dominate the landscape is a problem in some older neighborhoods. And affordability, there's a shortage and need for affordable housing and starter homes. And goal H2, protecting the character of Narragansett neighborhoods. And 2.2, support residential infill expansion. It is sensitive to the surroundings, does not, in the emphasis I added, does not negatively impact a neighborhood's character. And then B, review and update subdivision regulations to incorporate guidelines and ensure infill is compatible with surrounding neighborhood. And H 3.2, housing 3.2 is reduce impacts to residential areas from neighboring incompatible uses. And that specifically is relevant to the issue of where industrial and businesses adjacent to the neighborhood, where we're keeping that minimum setbacks. And then economic development, ED 1.5, maintain a housing stock suitable for all people. And then the proposed ordinance would reduce requirements for minimum building setbacks from property line lines, increase maximum building coverage, and building size, for all industrial, commercial, and industrial development by 15%. This will result in houses that are larger and closer to property lines. Increasing the size and scale of houses in neighborhoods changes the character of the neighborhood. Forest standards were specifically adopted in Narragansett after years of consideration to address the issue of houses being built on small lots that are out of scale to their lot and not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed revisions would reduce the effectiveness of forest standards in protecting neighborhood character. Data documents that much of development in Narragansett is demolition of existing smaller cottages and houses and replacing them with much larger houses. Tearing down small cottages and replacing them with larger houses is identified in the comprehensive plan as a problem. Enlarging houses increases their cost, reduces their affordability. Converting housing that is more affordable to larger houses makes them less affordable and reduces the availability of housing stock that is smaller and more affordable. And both the comprehensive plan and the draft state housing plan both point to the demographics which show the need and want for smaller houses. So building bigger houses is contrary to the demographic trends and the need. And converting Narragansett's stock of smaller houses to larger houses is contrary to this need. This proposed change in standards is in addition to the recently reduced standards for development on substandard lots. Narragansett has many substandard lots. The reduction in dimensional standards for substandard lots was only implemented in January 24 and may already negatively impact the character of many neighborhoods that have hundreds of substandard lots. Reducing the development standards on substandard lots an additional 15% will result in larger houses that are not consistent with the character of these neighborhoods. Further, this reduces the availability of small houses that are more affordable. Reducing the minimum setbacks standards between commercial and industrial structures, as we already talked about, and residential uses as proposed in Part 7 of the proposed zoning changes is specifically contrary to policy H 3.2, reduce the impacts to residential areas from neighboring incompatible uses. And then I speak to the consistency with aims and principles of the zoning ordinance. Specifically, the zoning ordinance is adopted to promote public health, safety, and general welfare, and provide for orderly growth and development, which recognizes the goals and patterns of land use contained in the comprehensive plan, the availability and capacity of the existing planned public-private services and facilities, and the use of innovative development regulations and techniques. As discussed previously, proposed changes are not consistent with the goals and patterns land use contained in the adopted comprehensive plan. Reducing development standards, especially on substandard lots, will result in larger houses and are not compatible with the neighborhood and change the character of Narragansett's neighborhoods. Increasing the number of larger houses will further reduce affordability of housing in Narragansett. The larger houses that will be built if the proposed changes are adopted will have more bedrooms, greater occupancy during the summer. This will increase demand on Narragansett's water supply and sewage treatment capacity, which are already stretched beyond capacity during summer months. The proposed changes will reduce effectiveness of FAR that was adopted to address the development that was inconsistent with and incompatible with neighborhood character. FAR is an innovative development regulation, thus adoption of the proposed changes reduces the town's use of innovative development regulation to manage growth and character development. Promoting implementation of the comprehensive plan is another zoning, and we've already discussed that. In my explanation there, development standards adopted in December 2023 in combination with modifications provision have been in place since at least the early 1970s on standard lots. In fact, even with the 15% revision made in 2023, the development standards are significantly reduced on substandard lots from what they were for over 40 years. Data from building permits over a 5-year period document that over 96% of building permits are issued with only staff review because the applications conform with the town's building regulations and standards. So less than 4% of building permits require a variance or special use permit because the application is seeking to exceed building standards. Data documents that most of these applications requiring variance and special use permit have been on substandard lots. With the change in development standards for substandard lots implemented in January 2024, the percentage of building applications that will need a variance is likely to drop significantly. And then zoning enabling provision for protection of public investments in transportation, water, stormwater management, sewage treatment disposal. The changes in development standards will result in larger homes with more bedrooms. This will increase demand on water and sewer treatment and sewage treatment and disposal during summer months when this infrastructure system is already currently stretched beyond capacity. Part 2 of the proposed changes, section 4.5, high water table overlay district, was adopted to help manage stormwater and help prevent neighborhood flooding during storm events. Increasing maximum coverage, site coverage 15% will likely increase neighborhood flooding and demand on stormwater management systems. Where the proposed amendments will affect town land uses and buildings and facilities, as previously discussed, the proposed changes will result in development of houses and other buildings that are larger, cover more of their lot, have a larger footprint, and are closer to property lines. Larger houses that are built will likely increase demand on the town's water supply and wastewater treatment systems. These facilities are already stretched during peak demand in the summer. Larger houses will exacerbate this problem. And the provision reviewing it consistent with the natural land and water resources, I incorporate the findings from the previous recommendation. Lots of out loud reading, which I'm not particularly adept at.
Well done.
So, Mr. Chair, can I just ask a couple questions? May I?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Well, first I just want to tackle, so, Mr. Freddy, I think what you want to keep on page 1 is that December 9, 2025 memo, because the one I provided you today already has your name on it. I think, unless you want me to refer to them both, and I can. I'll add them both, sure. December 20.
So, yeah, both. I mean, the one today includes all the detailed discussion of the suggestions we have for where it could be changed without conflicting with the comprehensive plan.
Absolutely. So, and then I'm going to just dial us back for a quick second. I had your report drafted, and I apologize I didn't stop you in the beginning. I forgot to bring it up. I used the format that you had done in April, which was for the board to first vote to accept your report.
Yeah.
So all of the consensus things that you had done, you know, that no one's forcing you to consent. And we had done that in April as a first course, and then there was the motion. Do you want to forego that, Mr. Chairman? Do you want to put that out for discussion?
No. Of course, this is almost a democracy here.
Teetering.
What do you think, fellow members?
And the reason why I do this instead of just doing the vote is because there were so many moving parts, and you guys consented. You know, you did consensus on a bunch of things. Okay.
Procedurally, Mr. Chairman, would there be anything that prohibits, or was the intent that as this goes to the council, that each of the action items would go with, whether it was unanimous or a 3-2, would you break it down that way? Or are we being asked for a single up or down on the entirety of the motion?
You need a single up or down on the entirety of what they've sent to you. And last time out, we gave them that, and then we gave them a report that was endorsed unanimously, that went through each of the things that were, each of the separate 14 amendments, proposed amendments, and conveyed the sense of this body on each one of those. 3-2, 4-zip, 5-zip, whatever the case might be. And I think what Jill's asking is whether we want to follow the same format. this
Yes,
time.
I asked earlier
that's-
this evening, I asked the same, yeah.
I think that's, so, and that I think makes sense. It's fairly not fairly, it's very transparent. It lays out for the council, where they can look in terms of where there were areas of stronger agreement or less strong agreement. But at the same time, the report is endorsed unanimously because it reflects actually what happened, so if we need a motion, you've got the motion?
So I have the motion for the vote up or down.
Right. So,
Can you put that in abeyance for a moment to do the other motion?
Yeah.
sure,
That's a,
sure.
that's a Nick question.
That's it.
There's, I don't think there's any right way to do it, so long as we are, and I think you covered it in your motion, Mr. Friday, including a general statement of the consistency of the proposal with a comprehensive plan. You addressed that, and you addressed a demonstration and recognition of the consideration of the applicable purposes of zoning. You went through some, not all. My only commentary was, I don't know if you want to go through all 16 and add commentary in your motion. You addressed a few of them.
I addressed the ones that I thought were most pertinent to our the reason for denial.
So as long as we're clear, just making sure we're covering our
I went-
bases. You considered them all.
I did consider them all. I reviewed them all, and I addressed the ones that I thought were most pertinent to this issue. Yeah.
Perfect. And as far as the order, what order were we proposing? I'm sorry, I missed that.
So
The question is whether we take an up or down vote on the referral first, and then second, add what I'll say is a addendum or a report to that basically says we went through each one of these issues. Some of these basically had to be subdivided. And on each one of these issues or subdivisions, the board's consensus was reflected either as a 3-2, 4-1, so on and so forth, and that would be essentially also it would be a unanimous report coming from the board, and then the vote would be on top. The vote would be the vote in terms of where we are.
I think that's fine.
Okay. So is it necessary to go back over each one of the sections?
we already did that, right?
Right, I thought we did. I thought we were
Yeah,
pretty
we
clear
did
where we
that.
are. And you're pretty clear where we are, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't need to do that. So I guess the question would be on that one, and you're asking whether we should do the vote first or this vote first or that vote first? That's what
In
we-
my
I don't
world, it
think-
makes sense to vote on your report before you vote. That way you've done that ahead and you can move forward. But
Okay.
if Mr. Salitro's advice is it doesn't matter, then I guess it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well,
I would just ask that when you do take that vote, that we address all of the, not specifically, but that it is subject to edits, because there are some edits, citations, and any attachments, so, Mr. Friday, like, for instance, the fire attachment, I wanna include.
I amend my motion.
Yeah.
So to those words.
No, I have it right here,
Okay,
this is
okay,
when we
yeah.
approve the report, that I can attach to the report and the citations. I believe you received a letter from Mr. Warren again, if there was the fire code information, I wanna be able to include all of that.
Right.
And that's drafted in this first, approval of the report.
That was my intention.
Yep. It's at the bottom of page 19. So it's the report and my edits, of course. We can take out citations. I think that was something that we had done because we had so many of them last time. Edits and inclusion of attachments provided to the board as well as testimony exhibits.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to include the fire code stuff. because you did read and reference that. Was there something else I'm missing? Mr. Grundy, do you want me to include your wait. Article 13, Section 4?
I think that, yes, I think if there is a contrary motion, I would make that as part of the motion. I don't know if the intent is to just do a motion that would be passing. I'm going to assume 3-2. I don't want to assume, but it seems the tea leaves is somewhat clear. And then sometimes if there is a dissenting motion that might fail 3-2, that might be more appropriate.
Just for the record, the board.
Okay,
Yeah, so, Mr. Grundy, this may answer your question. I just confirmed with Jill, it's very much her intention to include all of the commentary that she can in what's going to the council. So, she's flipping through her notes that she kept way better than I would this evening. She's done her best to report whether it's a majority makes certain commentary and wants that reported to the council, or a minority. I think it's her intention to report all of that to the council.
Yes.
I think as long as it's in the report, I'm comfortable with it. I just think it's the reasoning for my lack of agreement with the majority. I don't want to see. I don't disagree with the goal of what they did. I just have an issue with the process.
That's fine, and I think the council will be, you're an advisory board, and I think they're happy to hear from both the majority and minority on all issues.
I got it. I planned on putting some things. There was no commentary. There was no. I leaned over to him about it's the minority, the minority vote. There was no minority comment, and where there was minority, where you did agree, I'll put that in. I'll make reference if the vote doesn't go 5-0. I expect it won't. That your commentary in the process and not the.
So the motion on the floor is what?
Yep.
Is Rupert's motion, which he
Yes, to recommend denial of what was sent to us by the town council.
I thought the motion was to approve the report.
No, that'll be
Nope,
next.
I think he's
That'll
going
be
to
next.
the denial
I'm
first.
sorry, from
That'll be next.
okay.
And so for discussion, I just thought you'd want to know. So I thought we'd have unanimous consensus on the 5-foot thing, so I drafted a motion for that. I thought we'd get consensus on it. We did.
I was close to it, but after thinking about it more,
You were with us.
it's with you the first
Yeah,
time.
April.
After thinking about it more, I would have liked to seen that change, so I am going to stay out of that one, but you're.
So I will second Rupert's motion.
Mr. Friday, your motion includes the side yard setback, correct? That's not a setback?
It does.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yep.
So, we need a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Nay.
3-2.
Predictable.
There you go.
Now,
We are predictable.
I'll make
Yeah, right.
make a subsequent motion, and that would be to transmit the report to the board, excuse me, to the council. That includes the memorandum dated December 22, 2025, as modified as a result of tonight's discussion, and that it would reflect, that said report would reflect the sense of this body on each of the provisions in parts 1 through 15, is it? 16? Parts 1 through 15 in the council's referral dated November 17th, 2025.
That's the motion.
Second.
We would
I'll second
convey,
that.
along with the motion, we would convey, include the report as discussed and modified tonight, including a sense of where the body landed on each of the sections of sections 1 through 15 of the council's referral, including the subdivisions, when we had a subdivision vote, for example, on the table of dimensional changes where the industrial and commercial was reflected as a 5-0 vote, the residential was reflected as a 3-2 vote. Does that make sense?
It does, and please include the side yard setback, which was not part of 1 through 15.
And the side yard setback.
Thank you.
And that we would transmit that to the council. So I make that as a motion.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Nope, go ahead.
Do we want to add something about the fact that we identified that there's a significant amount of data that would be helpful in formulating these going forward?
Will that make it in the report?
I think that's.
I plan on putting that into the report.
Okay.
Yeah, so under those specific consensus items where you guys
Okay.
actually, you voted opposite but agreed on the data.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have something in addition to that?
Not in addition, no, Jill does a great job putting these reports together.
No, okay.
I have full confidence that she'll make great edits based on tonight's, yeah,
Okay, so
long-winded going-ons.
So, we're voting,
I do reserve a right to run it by somebody. Can I do the doctor, or do you want to assign someone, Rupert?
yeah, Rupert
All
and,
right.
can handle it.
I'll do
first.
my best. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get everybody's commentary in. I can do that.
And Jill, when does this actually do to the council?
January 1st, Mr. Callahan, they gave it to us right through 3 holidays.
Merry Christmas and Happy
So-
New Year.
So did we do a vote here?
No,
Yes,
you
I
got
can-
No,
a
wait.
motion, got a motion and a second.
All right, motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So we are unanimous.
Yeah.
There you go. Woo!
Motion
You got one.
Unanimous on needing data and a unanimous
Right.
on
Motion to close.
So moved?
Motion to adjourn?
I'm sorry, I'm
Motion to
asking
adjourn?
you, I'm not calling
Motion
for a motion.
not
I'm asking.
I am, I'm calling one.
Did you hear that? Motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. God bless America. Happy Christmas season.
Yes.
Kwanzaa and